Other than that, how you doing?
Sorry? Yeah?
Who's he talking to?
Oh my goodness.
What's that?
It would be handy if I did give some out. Thanks.
Thought I'd say something. Go.
Look at that, a binder.
Another.
Should have brought my slippers.
Yeah. Oh, congrats, Councillor Wallace, on that.
Oh, thank you.
Wait a sec for Jill, or do you want to fly at her? Okay, I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. So by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Discussion on the agenda. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Public input period, unless Tracy wants to speak, we're good. Presentation by Miss Lois Hunter. Fly at it, Lois, and have our total attention.
Yeah, that's okay. So I've given you all a binder. So I was originally just going to talk through the binder, but I've also got it with something else to see. So if anybody can't see where I'm getting figures from or anything like that, I can pull it up on the screen and can point them out to make sure everybody's following. So to start with, I'd like to point out how I'd like the flow of the presentation to go, and then later on I'll conclude where we're going to take the next steps from. So I've got a long list in front of me, so I'm going to refer to it quite a bit to make sure I actually cover the points I want to, so just bear with me. So as I'm going through the information, if I'm explaining anything and you're not following exactly where I'm going or the information I'm presenting, please feel free to stop me at any time and I can explain it further. But if you've got very specific questions which are going to be quite detailed, then I'd like if you could hold them, and then if you could make a note of them, and then if you can email them to me. When we have the next meeting on the 18th, any emails that I've received with questions or anything, I'll have the information ready and I can just address all those detailed questions in that meeting. Okay. So how I've completed the financial plan, so I've done it as a status quo, unless I know of any specific differences, for example in staff changes. I've held the property taxes at 0%, with the exception of the debt-related funds required for the 4 million for the Columbia Washington, which is going to be financed over 30 years. Do you want me to
No, you're good.
start going back now? Carry on? Okay.
Sorry.
So once I get into the detail of the budget very shortly, that you'll see that it's very much an operational budget how I've done this at the moment. I've not got any special projects or capital expenditure in there, with the exception of broadband. I've done this for two reasons. Number one is we're not as far on as we wanted to be because the AGLG has taken up so much of our time. And the other reason is that I wanted to highlight the historical and also the predicted trends for the capital expenditure and the special project level. Okay, so if you all want to go to your bindings to start off with, and if you go to tab number 1 and look at that first sheet, which is highlighted the 5-year financial plan consolidated. This is the whole lot. This is the general, this is the water and the sewer operating, and it is just a one-page summary. So there's a few things I'd like to highlight on this page. So you'll see on the top line, the very first line, taxation is very much similar year on year. There's no real tax increases in there. On the sale of service, I've got a 1% increase year on year there. On the and if I'm going too fast at any point, please let me know. On the next line, which is the grants, you'll see that in 2014 it's lower than the previous years, which I will go into and explain why in a bit. What else is there? And then the line that I would like to highlight is near the bottom, which is the transfers to and from reserves and surplus. So you'll see in 2014, because with no capital expenditure, I'm just assuming we're all going to put all the surplus into the reserves. So in 2014 we've got 500,000. Going to 2018 we've got 975,000. Okay. Is there any questions on that page before I move on? No? Okay. Then if you'd like to turn the page and go on to the next one. This is the same information, again, in more detail, but I've provided the history there from 2009 to the year-to-date 2013, which was as of last week, with the 2013 financial plan and what I'm projecting. So, starting at the top, you can see that I've got the property taxes on the first line held at the 2013 rate. The second line takes into account the non-market changes, what they're currently estimating at the moment will get us an extra 33,000 in taxes. Then I've put in the additional taxes that we'll need to raise for the Columbia Washington debt. The parcel taxes you'll see there at 2013 rate, which is to cover the debts for the sewer and water and the excesses for capital expenditure. And then the utility taxes are actually as per what the utility companies have advised us for 2014, and then I've just put a percentage increase from 15 to 18. So, moving a little bit further down, so you can see the sale of service, I've got that at 2013 rate, and then I've put a 1% increase on each year. You'll see further down that in the grants, you'll see that I've not got any capital grants in there at the moment because I need to do more work to look at the gas tax fund and the community wildfire protection programme. And then the actual breakdown of the operational grants I'll go into in a bit further. The next section following that is the expenses. So this is where I've spent a lot of my time and focus at actually looking at the expenses.
Lois, can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah.
And on the grants capital, we have something in there on the 18th? Is that
Hopefully,
you're
yeah.
looking to do some more?
Yeah, exactly, that's it. I'm speaking to Don Mortimer next week, so that should give me an idea on the community wildfire protection. The gas tax fund, I need to understand the requirements on that, so I've actually got that now, so I just need to read it. So hopefully for the 18th I'll make a point of that. So, yeah, moving on to the next section, which is the expenses. So, because a larger portion of the expenses is labour, I've focused a lot of attention there. So, in terms of management and office staff, I've calculated the exact cost it will be for each individual, and I've ensured the costs are reflected in each area. For the public staff, public works department staff, I've done exactly the same. I've calculated how much it's going to cost us for each individual, and then I've worked with Darren on spreading those costs across all the areas. So to do this, what I did is I provided Darren with the historical costs for all the areas in terms of the number of hours. Based upon that information, Darren then budgeted the number of hours required for each area, which has then given me a dollar value. And then I've done further checks on that to make sure the actual amount of hours he's budgeted for does not exceed the actual productive hours that we have. So there's further checks that have gone on there. So then the costs that I've come up with for 2014, I've extrapolated to 15 and 18 with a percentage increase each year.
Can I ask another question?
Yep.
On the, I'm looking at Public Works across there where we look at our our budget and our actual year-to-date. So actual year-to-date, 1.1, and then the budget was 1.5, and you're going forward with the 1.5, but this is as of right now, so we've got like less than a month left
Yep.
in that. So are we really going to spend another $400,000 on labor in Public Works in this month?
I couldn't tell you the answer to what actually makes up those numbers without going into more details, so do you mind if I answer that on the 18th?
That'd be fine, yeah.
Any numbers on here, if you want more detail on, I've got the breakdown, so I can provide that kind of answer. So
Okay.
I'll put that as an item to address on the 18th.
Maybe a simpler question is what is the year-to-date number? What is the date
Yeah.
on your year-to-date?
As of last week. The problem is though, is that in 2013 there's still additional work that needs to be done to clean it up. So for example, I know we have things in the balance sheet which should have been moved out by now and would be reflected in these costs, and they haven't done yet. So really that it should have been done before now, but it hasn't, so.
And just as a follow-up to that, you might not be familiar with it, but Tracy may be. So in some, and I don't know about municipal governments, so you attribute a certain cost to a project or a function of the city, and you technically don't, maybe you've allocated the funds to that project or that function, and the money gets spent after the fact, but still under accounting would get attributed to the project or
Yes.
So
Mhm.
we do that as well at the municipality, so say, expenses are here, but checks come in January.
Yeah, we do accruals and prepayments.
Okay.
Yeah, so accruals are, so in 2013, we'll have to reflect in the account for goods and services that we have received in 2013. Doesn't matter whether we received the invoice in 2014 or when the cash flow is, we will put an accrual into the accounts which basically charges it into 2013, a credit will go into 2014.
Yep.
So when the actual cost comes in 2014, it's effectively nil effect in 2014.
Yep.
So yeah, so there is additional work that will need to be done in 2013 to make these year-to-date actuals correct.
Right,
at the end of the
okay,
year.
that's all right.
Okay, that makes sense.
We've already tried to address the fact that I've kind of told everybody that we need to make sure the actuals that relate to 2013 are reflected in 2013. So I've asked Darren to contact, I've asked everybody to contact all suppliers. Anybody who has a cost that is associated with us, if they could get their invoicing up to date for the end of the year. We've put a cut-off date of, I think it's the 20th of January for accepting invoices related to 2013, to try and get everybody to do it. And then anything else after that we'll have to kind of on a ad hoc basis, but we will make sure, if something comes in February and it's a large amount, I'll put an accrual in.
Okay, thanks, perfect.
Okay. So where was it? So yeah, so what I was just saying is that me and Darren have gone through the actual public works, and we've looked at it not just in a dollar value, we've looked at it in splitting it over in terms of number of hours in each area.
But on that's not just labor, that's
No, that's not just,
everything.
no,
Right.
I'm just highlighting labor
Yeah.
just because it's a large value, that's all,
Right.
but that is everything, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so all I'm kind of highlighting there is the actual historical cost, but please remember in this, in that we've got historical special projects included in there, but I haven't included any special projects. I've classed broadband as a special project just for now. And also the other special project in there is the RMI income, which has basically been offset. So the things that I would like to draw your attention on this particular sheet is if you go to the net income stroke loss line, I just want to highlight there on the surplus trend that is going downwards. So in 2009, we had, I'm not looking at the right line, that's what I'm trying to say. I've got a lot written down and just gonna get back to where I should be.
Could you pass the water, please?
Okay, so let me just recap what I was trying to say. So the net income stroke loss in 2009, we had 1.2 at the very bottom, which is, the surplus stroke deficit line. And then taking into effect I'm not actually budgeting for any capital expenditure, we've got 975 in 2018. So what I'm trying to say there is that in 2009, after all the operations, after special projects and after capital expenditure, we've had a surplus of 1.2. But in 2018, without taking into consideration capital expenditure or special projects, we've only got 975. That's also in addition, remembering in 2009, we've also had 599,000 available to move to reserves. So I'm just trying to highlight in terms of how much money we've got left over. It's a downward trend. Okay, any
Sorry,
questions?
yeah.
Yep.
So, on the very bottom line, the surplus/deficit, so under 2014, you don't have anything, but above it is the deficit of 500,000, is that what you're saying? Is that right?
Sorry, that's not a deficit. That 500,000 is how much we've got left over. And I'm just taking the assumption we're going to move it all to reserves.
Oh, okay.
So in
Right.
2014, we've got 500,000 available to move to reserves. Compared to 2009, we moved 599,000 to reserves.
Mm-hmm.
We still had 1.2 left over, and we also spent 435 on capital.
So in other words, moving that 500,000 into reserves predicted into 2014, there's nothing, no surplus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm doing
Yeah.
a balanced budget, so
Yeah.
it has to be balanced at nil.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, perhaps not very well, what I'm saying is in 2009, we had enough money to move 599,000 to surplus, to reserves, sorry.
Right.
In 2014, we only have 500.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In 2009, we had 435 to spend on capital expenditure.
Right.
2014, I've not budgeted anything there.
I
Nothing
see.
there.
Yep, got it.
And also in consideration as well, in 2009, we had 1.2 surplus.
Mm-hmm.
There's none in 2014.
Hmm.
So I'm just highlighting the downward trends there.
Thank you.
Okay? Is there any other questions on that page before I move on?
So if we want to make that healthier, we either have to raise our taxes or cut our expenses somewhere along the line.
You'll see where this is going, but yes, but ultimately it is going to be a balancing between raising taxes, raising our sale of services, reducing our costs, how much do we want to use of the reserves, that kind of thing. So that's, I'm not giving you the answers, I'm just going to feed you a story, that's all.
Thank you.
We want
Okay.
the answers too.
Like a sad, looking a little like a sad story, but who knows?
We'll talk about, it's gonna go that way, so we'll talk about it more. Okay, so is there any more questions on that page before I carry on? No? Okay. So if we then move on to the next tab, is now the general fund. So this is excluding water and sewer, it's just purely general funds. So there's one page where the first page here is just a summary of everything together. The next page is a summary of the capital only, and then the pages after that is just the operational. Okay, but if we can stick with the, if we can move to the next, so there's a lot of information here. So some of it I'm going to skip over, and it's just a case of you can look at it at your leisure. Any questions, email me, and I'll address them on the 18th.
Thank you.
Okay. So if we turn over the page and go to the second one, which is the general capital funds, and there's just some general items that I want to highlight to you on here. So, what is done on the general funds is, on the operational side, I've assumed after revenue and after all the operational costs, we're going to have a surplus. I've assumed we're going to move that surplus into capital. So, if you look on the very bottom, and then we look at 2014, you can see a transfer of 209,000. That is the surplus from the operating.
Wait a second, I may be on the wrong page. Which page? We're on the
We're on the
General
14
capital.
capital, general
General
capital.
capital fund,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you look at 2014, follow it all the way down
Yeah.
near the bottom, there's 209,000.
209,
Yeah.
okay.
So if there's any numbers that you can't see, this is why I've got the projector, I can stand up and point to them, but we seem to be doing okay.
No, I
Yeah,
heard,
Didn't bring my reading glasses, sorry, it's my
very
fault.
small, like, yeah.
It's
and
okay,
I
I-
heard 239, and I couldn't find
Oh,
230,
sorry.
209.
209.
No, it wasn't you, it was me.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that all the surplus on the operational side, we're gonna move into capital. So with that said, what I'm then saying is if you go up a little bit, transfer to reserve for capital. In 2014, can you see the line that says 276,000?
Where are we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah?
Okay, yep.
So after moving all the reserves from the operations, this is how much money we're going to have left over on the general operational side. So again, taking into consideration that's not after any capital expenditure, there's only the broadband, which is a special project. This is how much money we're going to have left over. So if you compare that to 2009, we had 979 to move to reserves. So 2014 is a little bit low, which I will discuss it in relation to some particular costs and a grant. So if you take it from 2009 to 2018, we've gone from 979 to 711. So that's a downward trend. Taking into consideration, in 2009, we spent 219 on capital. And we had an additional 34,000 surplus left over. So that's just that's just what I wanted to highlight on that page. Is there any questions on that page before I move on?
Well, Lois, so
Yeah.
what you were just speaking about, the transfer to reserves for capital.
Yeah?
So for 2014, we've got 276 sitting there,
Yes.
but then it increases the years after.
Yes.
So,
So I'm going to talk about it on the next page. So there is particular items in 2014 that I've identified. So I've put that as a one-off in 2014, and then I put it back to normal in 2015 going on. But I will, on the next page, identify why that is.
okay, thank you.
Is there any questions on that page before I move over? Okay, so then this next page is the general operating fund. So again, I'm just going to let you view that at your leisure. But if you go about 2/3 of the way down the page to grants, there's the small community grant. So the history with the small community grant is that we have the small community grant. The government decided to change that to the strategic investment, strategic community investment fund. They've decided they don't like the strategic community investment fund, and we're going to go back to the small communities grant. But what that means is that we're going to have a cash flow issue here. So if you look and the years, we go 466, 466, 467, and then we follow it through to 2013 and 2014. We drop down to 295, and then we're going to go back to 449, and then it'll be consistent from there. But it means we've got a lack of income there. That's one of the reasons.
Okay.
So we have 150,000 in reserves, which was identified for 2013 in terms of 2013 was expected to be lower. So we have 150,000 put aside for that specific reason. But until I kind of look at the 2013 numbers and get more comfortable with them, I've just budgeted to move the 150 out of reserves in 2014. So to plug the gap in 2014. Okay. This is kind of a small topic, but something that needs to be addressed. Under the small communities grant, we've got a line there for the regional district cemetery grant. So I have budgeted 15,000 at the moment because that's what we received in 2013. But I need to get some clarification in terms of what I need to apply to the regional district for this grant. We need to apply to them So out of that, the breakdown of that 15,000 is for 10,000 restoration and 5,000 for maintenance. Now, later on in this pack, you'll see I've included an email from Jackie Drysdale, thank you, which talks about that. So it's just that is a point of conversation that we need to have at some point about that.
Can I just say something while we're talking about that? I have confusion about those numbers myself, and I know Jackie's been asking me for some feedback because the cemetery would like to have more funds to continue what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And Darren might be able to help me because I'm confused as to what that number was. Jackie was saying there's 10,000 going to the cemetery, and I didn't think it was.
It's 10,000 restoration works. So what she's, each year they've been allocated 10,000 purely for restoration works, and then the rest of it is for maintenance. So.
Okay, but there's the guy that might answer it, because there were some of those funds were slated towards cleanup of that windstorm from a number of years ago. So, do you happen to recall off the top of your head, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, originally it was from the windstorm, so then we did all the trees, and then we wanted to do restorations of the grave sites.
Yeah.
Which, till this year, it's probably 90% complete.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5,000 was for annual maintenance, and then the additional 10,000 was for capital work.
Yeah, but there was an end to it. I remember there was an end to
There,
it.
and you know what, this year,
Last
probably
year.
should have been the end, but it's not quite done.
Okay.
I think further on, I've included a summary from Jackie, which might kind of clarify the answers that you want. But if it doesn't, if you send me an email before the 18th, I'll try and kind of clarify it further before then.
Okay. I'll try and have a talk with her too and figure that one out in my head. Thank you, Lois.
Yeah, okay. So is there any questions on that before I move on? Like again, there's a lot of information here, so I'm kind of assuming that, that you're going to have to go away and kind of look at this further. Okay. So moving on then, if we actually move on to the actual next tab, so tab number 3. This is the water fund. So it's the same layout as what we just looked at in the general fund, but this is only water related. So if you start at the top and look at the first line, the parcel taxes, you see I've held them at 2013 level. So the parcel taxes are to cover the debt that relates to water, and any excess has to be used for capital items. You'll see on the user levies, I've held that in 2014, it's at 2013 rate, and then I put a 1% increase each year. You'll note on that line though that in 2009 we were at 601,000, and we decreased to 532,000 in 2014, which will be the fact that we've gone from from flat rate to metered rate. Okay, so the revenue is actually decreasing there. And then the other items that I'd like to point out is that, again, the downward trend in how much money is actually left over. So in 2009, we had 188,000 in capital expenditure, whereas I'm not budgeting anything in 2014. We had enough money left over to move 147,000 to reserves. In 2014, we only have 181, but it's actually going upwards into to 231. And then in 2009, we have 11,000 surplus, where we have to have a balanced budget. I'm not forecasting any surplus there at all. So just wanted to highlight that trend again in terms of, we're going on a downward trend in terms of how much we've actually got left over to look after our infrastructure.
So, sorry,
Yep.
So the bottom line, the bottom line, it's not the bottom line because there's so many lines.
Yeah.
But, if you don't have money to transfer into reserves, the bottom line is much different than when you do, right? So, like I'm looking at 2011, right, and it says transfer, to reserves,
That's
1.8, right?
Yeah, that's actually
And then
from reserves.
Yeah, so then it shows a surplus of, $1.5 million. Am I reading that right? At the bottom line, right? So 1.5 million. So that's pretty extraordinary. So was that to do with Oprah, what was that to do with, like, why was there such a big number for transfer from reserves, and you don't have to answer it now, compared to the bottom line for surplus, 11,000, 2,000, going across 1.5 million?
Isn't that taking it out of reserves?
That was
At
out.
one point out was
Mhm.
taking it out.
Yeah.
11 was out.
Probably for Columbia, Washington or something, right?
No, I don't think it will be.
So that's out of reserves, okay, I'm confused.
1.8 out.
It's 1.8 out of reserve that.
Is that sand?
Oh, I see, right above it, okay.
Sand's not that much.
But I'm
Oh,
just,
maybe.
why is that number
Did you
so
replace
big?
the sand there, no?
No, not that, no.
Do you know, Dan? I'm just curious why
I'm
that.
thinking possibly we did, work in 2011 up at Murphy Creek.
Yeah, or Oprah or something, right?
There was an intake.
Oprah, it's water fund, so
It wasn't
Oprah
about
intake.
1.8 million.
Yeah, so that's a huge number, right?
Yeah, I can look into the
Yeah,
detail on that and
that'd be great.
clarify that one.
Thank you. And then, so for 2013, we're deficit of 62,400?
And you
Budget,
take-
oh, that was the budget,
that was the budget to have a deficit of 62,000.
okay. But in fact, it's 185,000 surplus.
Yes, but what that doesn't take into account yet is the Columbia, Washington, and I'm not sure, I still need to kind of
Okay.
clarify how that's exactly gonna work. So in 2013, this is, it's an indication, but it's still gonna move around, so.
Right,
Um,
thank you.
I think, just off the top of my head, I think there should be an extra 100,000 in the water for 2013. It's just been accidentally coded into general, so I know that needs to be cleaned up and moved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just also as a matter of point, clarification that
Yeah?
there's no running total of the actual reserve.
When we move on, I'm gonna give you what the balance of the reserves are.
Right, and also just for clarification, that the zero that checks at the bottom for 14 through 18,
Yes,
because you're doing it at a zero, it shouldn't be alarming anyone here, because there's 181 up to 231 transferred to reserves, and in other years, there were lesser amounts transferred to reserves.
in other years though, we had large amounts on capital expenditure.
And also capital expenditures, but we also don't have a picture of what the reserves look like
Yep,
currently
it-
either, right? I mean, we
yep.
will, but we
I
don't
will do,
right,
yeah.
right here.
I'm not trying to alarm anybody by anything, I'm just saying this is how much money we previously had, this is what we got. In water, yeah, we're, and because I'm gonna do this for general, I'm gonna do it for water and I'm gonna do it for,
Sure.
so just so you can get a feel up for it as well, so it's not something necessarily to be alarmed by, I'm just highlighting what we've got left over. Okay,
Mhm.
is there any other questions on that one? So then the next two pages, again, is just the water in terms of the capital fund and the operational fund. So I'm not going to go over them, it's just something that you can look at your leisure. So then the next tab, if we go to tab, I think it's 4, is it? Tab 4. This is now the sewer fund. So as you can see in the first line, the parcel taxes have been held at the 2013 level. The user levies, 2014 is at the 2013 rate, and then I put a percentage increase on each year. Then if you look at the sewer operations line, you'll see that we go from 2013 of 410 to 553, which I'll explain in a moment. But again, just to get a feel for it, in terms of 2009, we had 30,000 on capital expenditure, 75,000 available to move to reserves, and 56,000 left over. Whereas in 2014, we only have 42,000 left over. Okay, so costs are basically increasing from what I've expected on the budget. Okay, so sorry, just staying on that page as well, I just wanted to point out that the last time the rates increased on the sewer was 2010. So you can see on that second line, we go from 460 to 510. That is presumably because the rates increased at that point. Okay? Okay, so from there, if you'd just like to turn over 2 pages to the page that is the sewer operating fund. The line that I want to highlight on this page is about halfway down, and it's called the Regional Sewer Treatment and Disposal line. So in 2009, it's 224. 2013, that's 258. That's not going to change. In 2014, it goes up to 352. 2015, 389, and you see the trend where we're going. That is the actual charges from the regional district. So if you turn over the page, that is a copy on the next page of the actual regional district budget. So in 2013, it's 1.2 million. We were charged 20.9% of that. So what I've budgeted is from 2014 to 2018, I've budgeted 24.9% of that, which I believe that is not potentially going to be the case, but that is the worst case scenario from what I understand. So that is what's driving the cost of the sewer going up. So as a result, if you just turn back to the previous page, the actual amount left over, we actually can't fund the sewer. We would actually have to withdraw money from the sewer reserve, operating reserve each year, just for the operational funds to balance. Okay, so that's worst case scenario. So I believe that we'll have an update on that hopefully shortly. So we may have a revised version on the 18th of December. Is there any questions on the sewer before I move on?
So, Lois, just a clarification again. So, in from 2014 onward, the reserves. I'm looking at transfer to and from reserves operating.
Yeah.
Those 59,000, for example, in 2014. That to cover those increases that are coming down the pipe from the regional district of Kootenay-Boundary. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're not increasing our revenue, but our costs are ultimately going up. So we can't. It's not balanced any longer. For it to balance, we're going to have to redraw on our reserves each time. There is we may be able to use some of the gas tax funds, but I don't know the detail on that enough. So there is an option to fund it that way, but ultimately there's only going to be a life on that before we have to increase costs if that's the way it goes.
Yep, thank you.
But also, again, if you do use the gas tax fund and then for whatever reason that stops, there's going to be a huge increase.
Yeah.
So it's just something to bear in mind. So is there any other questions on the sewer before I move on? Okay. So then if we move over on to the next tab, this is what we were just talking about. This is the current level of reserves that we've got. So it's 2 pages. We've got the operational and we've got the capital reserve. So if we just look at the operational reserve, the balance at the moment is 1.1. In the 2013 budget, there was 72,000 which was budgeted to be moved out reserve. So I'm just working on the basis that that is going to happen. And then in 2014, that's the 150,000 that I talked about before about the small community grants, moving it out to reserves and using that. So at the end of 2014, at the end of 2014, just going with what we've got, we would have 912,000 in there. So on the second page is the capital reserve. So the balance at the moment is 3.4, but 1 million has already been identified for the funding for the Columbia Washington, so I'll need to move that into the outer reserve into the account. As per what we've budgeted in the 2013 budget, we've got 228 there for equipment replacement. Again, I need to look at the 2013 to confirm that, but I'm just going with the basis that we're going to have to. So that leaves us with 2.2 available on the capital reserves. And if you add them two together, that leaves us at 3.1. So I'm just simply posing the question there in terms of what do we feel comfortable having in our reserves. Yes, there is the option to fund some things from reserves, but you know, what level do we want to maintain? And just for information purposes, 3.1 is about 56% of our operational and debt servicing.
So that question then, Lois, is that a common principle that a municipality would have, like a year's worth in reserves, just in case?
I don't know the answer to that question
Okay.
myself at the moment. I want to do some research in terms of what our other municipalities doing. What is there a best practice out there?
Right.
So I honestly don't know the answer to that question myself at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I remember asking Cecile that same question, and she explained it, but I don't remember what the answer was. Just, you know, the percentage of reserve to,
Yeah.
to,
I know
your...
I know when we started, when she was doing it last year, our reserve level was 1 year.
Right.
So the servicing and the debt servicing. The operational and the debt servicing. So we were at 1 year there, so it was 100%. So after identifying the Columbia, Washington and all that lot, it takes us down to 56%. And to be honest, that's as much as I've managed to do on that area. So there is more work that I need to do on that area to find out what is the best practice, what do we want to do.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions on that one before I move on? Okay. So then, the next area that I would want to focus on is in terms of the property taxes. So just for a bit of historical background, the revenue split between the classes is this first graph. So as you can see, residential bears the brunt of it in Roseland. And then on the second graph, if you turn over, this is the split that we have been using between the classes in terms of the tax ratio. So in 2010, we did an adjustment, but since then, the split between the classes has remained consistent. So in keeping with that split, if you want to turn over the page again, in keeping with that split and looking at the Columbia, Washington debt, how this would actually affect a representative household. So you can see on that next page, I've got, this is what the 2013 taxes are. This is how the 33,000 from the non-market changes to what we're going to have in terms of property taxes for 2014. Of that, 241 is 6.7%. So we need to increase taxes by 6.7% to cover the Columbia, Washington debt. So what is that in terms of a representative household? Well, in 2013, the representative household was valued at $255,000. The municipal tax, so ignoring the tax collected for schools, hospitals, all the rest of it, the municipal tax was $1,630. So with a 6.7% increase, that would be an increase of $109 for that household. So the 2014 tax burden for the municipal portion is $1,739.
So that's the impact of the Columbia Ave project, right there.
Yep.
It's nice to have that number.
Yes. So,
Sadly enough.
yeah,
That's better than
that's just a
350.
number
Yeah.
for the debt of $4 million. We didn't finance it all from there.
Oh, true enough.
We financed
Reserve.
what was it, $1 million from
Reserve,
reserve.
yeah, 1.4.
And then there was the grants as well. So that's only a portion of it that we
Right.
decided to finance over 30 years. Okay. So then I just wanted to provide, I mean, this is as much for my information in terms of getting a grip with it all, but I've provided the information in terms of how do we compare to other municipalities of the similar sort of size and facilities. So I've just picked some results, some areas there, municipalities, which I think are sort of similar. So again, you can see Roseland, the average household in 2013 was valued at $255,000. So the municipal portion was that $1,630 that we're talking about. So the total taxes collected, because we have to collect for schools, districts, hospitals, would have been 3,892. So the municipal portion that relates to that is 53%. So just taking Invermere, for example, their taxes collected was 3,745, fairly similar. Theirs was 50%. So it's just for information purposes, that's all. But if I took all municipalities and ranked them all, so on this last column is a ranking. So if they were the lowest percentage, they were given the number one. The highest was 161. So Roslyn's was 98 on that ranking. Okay. So just
What was the top number, 160?
161, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
161 being the highest percent.
Yeah.
So that's just some information there for comparison. So then, on the next page, I did some further comparison. Unfortunately, this summary is over 2 pages because when I printed off on one, it was too small. But this is just further...
Could I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I'm looking at the regional district, and I'm sure you're all looking at that number, and compared to the other municipalities.
Where are you looking, Joe?
Other than trail, I'm on that same page we were just on, 704 taxes and charges, and I'm looking at the regional district column.
Yeah.
And when you look at all the other municipalities and their contributions to their regional district, and then you look at ours and trails, it's pretty significant, no?
I don't know what facilities these other areas provide. I don't know if they provide it. I don't know if the region district provide it. I don't know if it's provided at all.
Yeah.
So...
But it just gives us a comparison of, you know, those same kind of communities or similar communities in size, et cetera, and house value, other than Invermere is based on $403,000.
Yeah.
Those numbers are pretty significant.
Yeah. So then, it's interesting that you picked up an Invermere of the house value of 403, because on the next summary, what I've done is I've put everybody on the level playing field.
Okay.
And I've done... The Roslyn average household is valued at 255. What are all these taxes for each area? So if we pick on Invermere, for a house that's valued 255,000, they would have paid 1,689. You following where I am in taxes?
Yeah.
Of that, 842 would have been municipal related. And Roslyn, unfortunately, is on the second page, so you can see that they would have paid 3,060, but the municipal portion is 1,600. So again, it puts them on a level playing field, but I don't know the other municipalities, what services they provide or don't provide.
Yeah, it would be interesting too.
Yeah.
But no, this is awesome. Thank you. Good.
So I've just picked
Data.
some example ones, and I've included trail only to highlight the line that's actually in bold, just in terms of how much taxes they collect from media industry.
62%, there you go.
Yep, exactly. So I've just included on there, so, you know, like, we will, you know, we don't have the industry to collect taxes from, so it is the residents that are going to bear the brunt of our taxes.
Sorry, where's that number on the data,
So-
the 62% cash?
Next page.
But where's the
Total
62%?
of total.
She knows it. Oh, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Lois, I want to go
Yes.
back a couple to
Yes.
this graph.
Yes?
Now, maybe I'm not reading this right, but our commercial tax rate is 1.7. Am I looking at this wrong?
So how this is represented, so this is the mill rates that we've got for each individual area.
Yeah.
So I've used residential as the benchmark. Residential is 1.
Yeah,
So the utilities, in comparison to the residential, is 3 times more.
yeah.
So it's just the ratio of each one. It's not the actual rate. It's just if residential's 1, then the utility's 3 times more.
Okay. Okay, somehow I'm...
Do you want me to-
Ratio, because we do have residential as 1.
Yes.
And commercial is 1.7. Is it not?
No,
Oh, yeah, ratio.
residential's not 1. If you're looking at it as a ratio, we put residential 1, and then we benchmark everybody against that 1.
Okay.
Do you have
So
somewhere
3 to
where,
1.
where our actual
1 to 3.
rates are?
I can put this in a different
Yeah.
format, which would probably
Yeah.
make more sense.
Okay.
Because mixing up a
So-
ratio and what the actual tax
Yeah.
rate
Yeah,
is,
exactly, yeah.
right?
Okay.
It's not the actual rate, it's a ratio analysis.
Okay.
So I can put that in a different format though, so it'll make more sense. So,
Thank you.
all I'm trying to show on that graph is that throughout the history from 2009, we've said we need to collect X amount for taxes. We've then split it over the different areas in exactly the same way. Maybe a percentage would have made more sense to you.
Mhm.
You know, if we added this all up to 100, residential would have been whatever percent,
Mhm.
utility would have been that percent, so it's just,
Okay.
I'm trying to highlight how we've split the taxes up over the different areas, that's all.
Well, then residential would be 88% or whatever it is, right?
Something like that,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It would be the height, it would be.
Which is,
I actually thought
Right
trails, I didn't know it was 62, I thought it was 67 that they got from industry. I'm surprised that it's 62.
They,
I thought it was 67.
didn't they make a deal, they're dropping it to 50?
Yeah.
That's, so when people are saying, why is Roslyn so much more expensive than trail taxes? Well, they've got tech.
Mhm.
We know that.
How did you,
The numbers are right there.
Yeah.
You know.
how did you pick the cities that you used for comparison?
To be honest, I cheated on that one and said, Tracy, which municipalities should I use to compare us against that are kind of similar size and similar sort of
Yeah.
services?
Because
There
some of these are
wasn't
a
any
lot
ex-
smaller than we are, and then some are quite a bit
Yeah.
bigger.
It was more to do with things like, you know, who has snow plowing, that
Okay,
type of,
okay.
yeah.
There wasn't an exact
Yeah.
science on it. I just thought, let's just pull some people out and just have a look what
Yeah.
we compare against. I mean, in terms of population size and property portfolio, without knowing any information about Invermere, to be honest, I would pick Invermere as kind of a good benchmark, but I have no idea of Invermere at all. I don't know their services or anything like that, so
Mhm.
I was just looking portfolio size and
Mhm.
properties, and the actual population number is fairly similar.
I would have thought Fernie might have been in there, because I think they're a little bit bigger than we are population-wise. They're like 46 or something, aren't they, guys? Do you know, anybody know?
We can
But they're
always add
the same.
some.
Yeah, but it's great information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you like me to look? Sorry?
Sorry, what's the major industry in radium?
Then sawmill, tourism, or sawmill.
No, there's a
Mm,
major,
6.9 major industry,
Major
yeah.
industry.
6.9 million.
they have less, lower taxes too, so just 10% or something.
Radium.
Yeah.
Makes a big
Right,
difference,
my geography
just having
is
a small
not so good.
percentage makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have sawmill down in the town, right? Yeah.
So yeah, so that's just additional information there, just to kind of see where we are against other people.
That's good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Would you like me to add any more onto this,
I'll throw Fernie in, sure.
Furnace?
Throw Fernie.
Or I wonder, how about Grand Forks also, since
Yeah,
it's kind of a
that's-
near
Yeah, Grand
competitor
Forks.
almost, right?
Yeah, Grand Forks.
Grand Forks and Castlegar, I guess, those are kind of the
Yeah,
veg
Castlegar and
and
Nelson.
competitors.
Castlegar,
Yeah.
Castlegar and Nelson are gonna be a lot bigger population, but, and we'll
Mhm.
see, it'll be another
But,
trail story, right, with big
How it
industry.
breaks down,
Yeah.
because really Castlegar is kind of a competitor of ours, right, so we
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
have to look at it.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I can pull that together, that's not a problem. So then if we move on to the next tab. So this is the garbage, in terms of this is what the history is, this is how much surplus or deficit that we've had, and this is what's predicted. So because our supply costs have gone up, in 2014, we're forecasting that we're going to make a deficit of nearly 12,000, and that's the same year on year. So because we've already addressed the fact that we need to increase the cost, on the next page I've come up with a number of options. So option one on the second page is that we keep the service level, status quo, but we increase our costs from $84.25 to $92.50. What that would give us is a surplus of $1,357, and as the surplus has been, the deficit has been building, it would take us 7 years to get back that deficit. That's option one. Option 2 is to lower the price to $79.14, but only have the spring cleanup and not have the full spring cleanup. And that option there would get us to cost recoverable, nil, no surplus, no deficit. Option 3 is to reduce our cost to $75.38. That would be only including a full cleanup and no spring cleanup, and that would also get us to cost recovery. Option 4 is to have no spring or no fall cleanup, and we could reduce the cost to $62.96. And that would get us cost recovery. So it's just a number of options there. So I've just, on the bottom bit, I've just tried to highlight how the spring cleanup is actually much more expensive than the fall cleanup. So, go on, sorry.
Darren, how many years have we had now since we've been doing or Tracy, the fall, spring cleanup since, how many years hasn't been
We
on?
cut it out at one time, right, Darren? And then we brought it back in.
We've been doing it for 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5
I think
years.
9 for sure.
9?
No.
No,
But
because
then
we
we
cut
stopped
it
it,
out, we
right?
stopped it for
Yeah.
4 years and then we brought
Yeah.
it back in.
I mean, 09.
Oh, 09,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Why is spring more expensive than fall? People taking more advantage
Yeah,
of the
there's a
spring
lot
one?
more, and plus there's a lot of
There's just
dirt.
all the stuff left
you know,
over from the
sand
winter.
From the winter, and so, which you gotta remember, during spring, we'd have to clean that up anyway,
Yeah.
the gravel part of it,
Yeah,
you know, we always have, because we, you know, put it all on people's boulevards, so.
yeah.
But would that show, am I allowed to ask just a question?
Yes, Neil?
Sorry. But we would have done that anyway, but that would that have shown as part of our garbage cost? And no, it would have shown elsewhere, no?
No, we charge it all to the spring cleanup.
Yeah, but if we didn't have the spring and fall cleanup, then you would be charging that to Public Works somehow,
To,
right?
snow removal or something, yes.
So
Just
which-
the sand part of it, where we wouldn't allow
Yeah,
leaves,
yeah.
you know, and branches and trees and whatnot.
So we're not really.
So, and then my other question is, and I think I've asked this before, I'm not sure if you give me the answer, how many people take advantage of that out of our community? How many households out of
We did-
1450 or whatever we call
That
it?
was 2 years ago, I think, that we,
Yeah, we had that number, didn't we?
I thought maybe we were thinking 40-50%.
Okay. So that's, well, it's not, is it time for I mean, we should
Yeah,
be
let's
discussing, well, I'm just saying,
No, we're
it-
discussing
I've
the
always
budget.
felt that the double is pretty extravagant, and I'm one of those people who doesn't take advantage of it at all, and, that's just my priority, because I have a piece of property, whatever. So, you know, I don't know
I know a lot
how
of
council
people-
feels, but I mean, my own feeling is, you know, if you need to prune your trees and, you know, then figure out a way to do it, or we need a chipper or something, you know, kind of regional chipper, but that's a big cost. And for everyone to bear the brunt of that, honestly, I don't know if it's worth it.
Okay, so I was just going to say, can
Sorry.
I interrupt in terms
Yeah.
of, I'd like to kind of keep us online.
Yeah, absolutely, that's why I didn't know.
So this is, when, kind of going to highlight in terms of how we'd like to move forward from here, and this is something that we need to discuss and decide then. So I'd like to kind of keep it on track in terms of the budget, but...
Absolutely,
if you
no,
don't
that's
mind.
why I was saying that. I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so that's just 4 options that are available there. Okay. So then, if we could move on to the next tab. So I'm going to start talking about the Asset Management Investment Plan. So I know not everybody was here on September 23rd presentation, so I've included that because I'd like to highlight some points from this presentation. So if you could go to page 6 of this presentation. So the work that was completed as part of this asset management plan, it was identified that Roslyn had a 17.7 million deficit. Now, deficit is just items of infrastructure which have gone beyond their expected life expectancy, and this is how much it's, at today's cost, how much it's going to get us to fix it. So it's a backlog, effectively. It's just somebody decided to call it a deficiency. Okay. So then if you move on to page 8, that is actually 10% of our replacement value. But we're better than the average BC, because BC's average is 16% and we're 10%.
Very good.
Mhm.
okay? But to fund that gap of the 17.7, if we, over 20 years, that would mean we would have to spend 3.7 million each year just to fund that backlog. Okay? So 3.7 million in our budget is not realistic. So what the consultant said was, well, look at what all the other BC communities are doing, and they're funding 40% of their deficit at the moment. So that would mean 1.48 million. Okay, now is 1.48 million in our budget realistic? Up to you. But, so what he then goes on to is on the next graph is to then highlight how do we fund this gap.
Mhm.
Okay, so what he's suggesting is that we need to decrease our services and basically increase our revenue to fund that gap. Okay,
Mhm.
the next step of this project was to do an asset management financial plan, which was basically a suggestion of how are we going to fund that gap. Now that's not been done yet, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but just with the whole financial plan in mind, I would just like you to bear that 17.7 million in mind. Okay. So, in terms of the asset management financial plan, that would cost us 25,000 if the consultant was to do that work. So what was agreed at the time was that the CAO received a spreadsheet of him which would do this financial modelling. Now, at this time, I'm not aware of any work having been done on that yet, so I got a copy of the spreadsheet and looked at the amount of work that's involved in it, and to be honest, I just put that aside and said that needs to be looked at next year in terms of we need to get a budget first. So that's just something to bear in mind, that the work needs to be done there of how we're going to finance that. Okay. So the next pamphlet that I've got in here, the coming collapse of the Canadian municipal infrastructure. This is basically
Little late night reading.
a little late night reading, yeah. This basically gives you the story of how the whole deficit has come about across the whole of Canada. So it's not just us. But I would urge you, as at least an absolute minimum to read, I'd like you to read the executive summary on page 2 and 3. That's kind of a very good summary if you don't read anything else, just that one. Okay. So then, hold on, get something I wanted to highlight here. So then, what this summary highlights is that the first step is that you need to identify the size of your deficit. Well, we've done that. And then the next step is to identify what our long-term certainty of our infrastructure funding is. So that's effectively what we need to do within the financial plan in terms of how are we going to fund this gap. Okay. So then once we've got the funding plan in place, we can then plan for in terms of what maintenance and what replacements are going to be done to make sure everything stays within a state of, repair that we're happy with. Okay. So then moving on to the next bedtime reading that I've included for you. This is something I found on the internet. And it's actually written by the same consultant that we had on the 17.7 million.
What's this one?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So again, it's just a summary of, how we've come here, what municipalities need to do, how can we fund that gap. But if you flip to page, find it? If you flip to page 7 of that presentation, we've actually provided a rule of thumb on the presentation. So even though we haven't got a financial plan of how we're going to fund that, we've got a suggestion from the same consultant on how we could at least have a minimum. So what he's saying is that if you've got a municipality that has no deficit, what you need to do is like a formula calculation, is the population times by the 25,000 with an expected life of 60 years, for 6 years is 1.7 replacement. You just basically follow that calculation through. I've taken 2% because we've got the winter dependencies on here. But that formula is suggesting that we should be spending 1.75 million on renewing our assets, on our infrastructure. Every year, but that's not taken into account our 17.7 million deficit.
Oh,
Really?
this is just,
This is
if
just,
you got to where
If you
you didn't
yeah,
have all
you
that
had no
deficit.
yes, exactly, that's
So
it.
every year, 1.75 million?
This is just a rule of thumb that I came across on the internet, and it's by the same consultant.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that this is what we need to be spending. I'm just kind of saying again, it's just something to bear in mind in terms of if every municipality is experiencing the same in terms of our funding's going down, we're getting pressure with more responsibilities. There's all these, yay, here's a grant, build something new, but then the cost of actually maintaining what you've built to carry on. So everybody's getting squeezed. So it's not, so what happens is that we want to maintain the same service level, but nobody wants to increase the taxes that go with that. So what happens is that the operational side kind of carries on, but the capital expenditure in the background is getting slowly squeezed. And that previous booklet I was just mentioning explains it really well, you know. So it's not something that it's just, you know, Roslyn, it's everywhere. So this is kind of, this consultant kind of says this is a rule of thumb. So it's just something, you know, we don't have the financial the financial model to how we're going to fund that, but we could use that as a guidance to start off with whilst we get that in place.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
We'll just
So-
have to cut it down to be $50,000 a year, which is what we can afford with our $17 million deficit.
So how to kind of bring this whole, bring it back in a circle, bearing in mind that 1.75 million, if you go right back to the very beginning of the presentation and look at that first page, in 2014, we've got 500,000 available. 2015, we've got 1 million available. So that's just to kind of bring it full around in terms of this is how much we should be spending. That's not taking into account our 17 million deficit. Okay. So that kind of concludes the budget presentation. The only thing I'd like to kind of highlight is there is an additional tab with some sheets there in terms of grant and aid requests that just for you to look over. I'm not going to go off of that now, that's just something for you to look at, but all I've budgeted for is status quo. So I've not, so Heritage Commission have asked for slightly more, I've not included that increase in there, I've just put status quo in there. So then, where do we go from here? So, in terms of the operational budget so far, there is still some work that needs to be done on it in terms of there's certain areas that I still have questions on and I want to clarify them, for example, insurance costs. So the numbers may change slightly, but having said that, I would say it's kind of a very good indication of where we are at status quo. Okay. Again, I need to do some more work on the community wildfire protection, the gas tax fund, so that would be grants coming in, so there is work to be done there, so I hope I'll have that done by the 18th. I still have some questions on the broadband, which I emailed to yourself, so I've included what I know about the broadband so far, but I'd like to spend some time just to make sure that my assumptions are correct. In terms of the Columbia Washington, I'm confident with the numbers that I've got, but I just want to speak to the MFA again just to confirm the time flows of the cash flow. So there may be a slight change there, but I don't really think so. The other thing that's not included on here is anything that was in the 2013 budget, but we haven't spent yet. What we would do is we would move it into reserves. I would then budget to have that expenditure in 2014, and then we would fund it from reserves. So, for example, there are a lot of legal costs that we're expecting. Some of it has been budgeted in 2013. We've not received those costs yet. So what we would do is put it into reserves and then I would fund it back out again. So there is some funding there from 2013 budget, but I need to spend more time looking at the 2013 actuals yet before I can confirm those numbers. Okay, so just to let you know that that's there. Other things that you may come across as well is the city equipment charges. I have some more questions on that myself yet, so I just need to kind of analyse that a bit further. I haven't had time to do that yet. Me and Darren are still kind of negotiating on some of the water and sewer costs, but in part they're practically there. I don't expect it to change much. So that's what work that I've still got, that's still going on. So where do we go from here? So we've got the meeting on December the 18th. So I'd like you to all kind of go through the budget before then. Any questions, if you could email them to me, so when we come to the December the 18th, the first thing I can do is sit down and go, these are the questions, and I can address them all there. We're hoping, depending on how much time AGLG take up, but we're hoping to have the special project and capital expenditure for that presentation for the 18th as well. And then from there, what we're suggesting is that on January the 6th, we'd like to have another committee meeting then, where I'll pull up an agenda of items that we need to agree upon. So, for example, the garbage, the cemetery, community support, taxes, any other suggestions on what you'd like to agree on that meeting. If you email them to me before then, I can put them on the agenda from there. Yeah, that's the plan going forward. Any questions?
First of all, wonderful job.
Yeah, bravo.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we have time for a couple of questions if we have any.
Yep. If anybody's got questions now, then.
But it'd be better to wait till we've had a
Yeah,
good read.
we have a,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
A lot of
read our binder.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't get it to you before then, but that extra week really helped me in terms of finalising it. So I think you've got a better information than if I'd given you it a week ago.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you all for bearing with me.
No,
Good.
very good and very well explained.
Yeah.
So, I think we can adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
Pizza's coming at
Pizza's
6:30.
Pizza's coming, so, thank you, Lois.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
We can,
So is everybody
Read.
okay for that committee of the whole on January 6th?
January 6th.
it's on my dog.
I'd have to agree with you.
Lois, so
Is that a Tuesday?
I
I guess that's
didn't have time to read any of
presentation.
the
Is it at 5?
emails actually, but I did start catching up today, and I did send you some spreadsheets that may help you, and then if they don't, just get back to me and I'll.
Yes, that's fine.
And I'll be
Go into
talking
the detail,
to Mark
I know
maybe
you
tomorrow or
mean.
the next day too.
Good.
So,
Yeah, it wasn't
good
great
time
news.
to-
But still,
No.
Yeah.
Comprehensive, eh?
Right.
What I'd like to do is
It
just
gives you a
pull up
lot better
one-page summary
understanding
of this is
Mhm.
where we are,
and
like,
Yeah.
you know, expenditure. what
Sadly
we're
enough.
the last couple of years,
and if we're gonna finance it.
What did you say, Tracy, January what?
So
6.
when we come to things, I know exactly where we are and the great map as well.
I'm going to Norway.
That's fine, I've had to.
They don't have an
no
infrastructure
now
budget.
today, just to try and finish it.
They don't have one?
Huge.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding. I was gonna
I
say.
can't imagine anywhere that doesn't unless it's a huge
Well,
municipality
you know,
that has a lot of tax.
when you're talking about the numbers of regional district that you were talking about, Jill, if you
Yeah.
took fire service out of there,
I know.
how would that
Half a
change?
million.
600,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
Upwards
you're still gonna
of
pay
half a
something,
million.
You're still gonna pay something, but.
But they're pretty interesting numbers.
Well, you know, when I saw my neighbor's house burning down the other week and all 5 fire trucks were there and you kind of, I don't know, I guess I just
Cost
went.
benefit,
Sorry?
cost benefit.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean? So is that normal for when a house burns down that 5 fire trucks show up? And, you know, as disconcerting as the fire was and scary and frightening, because half the family was in there, right?
Where was this
they're
one?
okay.
When was this one?
Lynn Vickers, Lynn passed away, but
Yeah.
her family home, just above me.
Anyway, we're,
On Thompson?
Yeah, anyway, we're just
We're
chatting.
adjourned, aren't we?
no,
Yeah.
I know, but I just, Lois sitting there like she's under the gun or something.
She died of cancer.
You're welcome to stay for pizza if you want to, or you can go.
Oh, hey.
She died, the brother died, and then
Oh,
Leah,
and-
I've got
Thanks
kids whose daughter's in my class.
Chip.
So this is,
Their son Chip died.
Yeah.
That was,
yeah, so that's Leah's brother. So anyway, the house burned, right, but every...
did it all the way down?
No, the whole top floor. I mean, it was a kitchen, it was serious, but it was interesting for me to see as a city councillor, that, like, the services that were there were everybody. And so,
But having
Tim,
five
how did
fire
they
trucks
determine
would make
that,
any
or they
difference
just, everybody respond? Yeah, like, it was massive. There was Warfield Trail, Roslyn, so
That
it,
isn't the part. When it's a structure fire, that isn't the point. The point is,
all the
we're
call
spending-
outs.
we're spending, I figured out,
69%.
we spent $239,000
Yeah,
in overtime.
yeah.
In overtime, and that overtime,
But then, why is it,
68% of that overtime is medical calls.
yeah.
68%.
And that's calling in the other crews and all
Calling in
that,
the
right?
other
Because I
crew when
read
a guy goes
the
to a car
report. Yeah, yeah,
Crew goes to a car accident,
I
they
know.
call in the other crew.
I know. So where's the
$300,000
accountability?
I don't know.
Well,
We
but
asked-
where
we
is the, but haven't we asked that question, where is the accountability?
Well, no, that meeting was canceled, the consultants couldn't come in, right?
I know, I was so disappointed, because I actually was
Did you read
there.
the report?
They've been
I
asked
read
to
the
come back
report, the
for
fire report, yes,
6th or
I did.
7th.
And they make it all glowing, right, because
Oh,
that's
right.
them writing it, right?
Hire 3 more people.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that report I didn't go on the website to look at it, is it coming to us as part of our
Well, it'll come to us
information
too, but
package?
it's on the regional district.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
on
I-
the.
Regional hasn't
But what was
received
the
it.
report that we got
It's
originally
in
from the
draft.
fire service,
It's a draft.
from Trail?
Yeah, okay.
That was that a draft?
What
You know, the
one
one
is
that
it
gave
about?
all the data and all the
Do you have a
services?
question on my desk?
That was just from them.
Oh, no,
That
I'm
was
happy
them
to look at it on the
bolstering
computer,
their
just-
costs, right?
I hadn't gone
Yeah,
to the
you know the one I'm talking about, the one
We had a
we
couple
got, it was a
recently.
while ago, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the official
Well, they do.
report that they were gonna present, it was them justifying, it was them justifying, yeah. So,
It is between now and January.
well, firstly, was
Well,
glad.
that's the question, right? Having fire trucks there,
Mhm.
did it make any difference in the response?
And Warfield, like, they were there like all night, like, the next morning I'm going to work and they were like there all night.
Well, it usually happens when you understand.
Yeah, they wanna make sure, but why was it Warfield? I was kinda curious about that.
Which reminds me that,
Investigation starts, so you have to do,
Okay.
they can't anybody on site.
Yeah, it was all, yeah, I understand that. But when I saw those fire trucks,
she really on the phone? It looks like she's holding a piece of candy or something.
sure, she's trying to get our pizza here sooner, we don't all fall apart. Anyway.
Report, all those recommendations were passed. They got their 500 grand.
Yeah, and so was that the actual fire guy, fire chief who did that? And the,
You look at the end.
No, they were the hired consultants.
All the consultants were career fire chiefs and,
yeah.
you know, like-
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious they were bolstering it, right, because
definitely.
of the
Yeah, but-
conversation,
But
but,
that's not what we asked them
no,
for.
that wasn't.
being
The
career
projected
fire chiefs,
here,
they're not,
do you see
they're not
that,
gonna say
like-
cut.
Of course they're not, it's like your colleagues, they're your colleagues.
Is it right,
So
is
to
that
me,
it?
your work is told us about
Trace,
What's that?
so the
That's
consultants
what you
for
need.
that fire study are back on possibly the 6th or 7th, so that just occurred to me.
The 6th or 7th?
Oh, golly, the new year's coming in.
Well, yeah, but.
Okay,
they're-
sit.
they're-
I'm leaving
they-
town
they
tomorrow,
were
I'm going
doing
to.
it.
Yeah, I would think so.
I'm not sure when.
No, but it was gonna be
But
at
this
4,
cow
it
would
was
be
our
at 5.
So,
Yeah.
if I know
But
it,
that was gonna be
I know
at
I can
4.
tell him at the chamber, he could come
The
in there.
consultant's report, so Tracy's saying, if it's the same nightcast
Julie was
thing, it might
saying,
be.
Julie was
Yeah, it might
saying,
be, I don't know.
like,
Yeah, but I mean, we don't need to go
4:30 or somebody will
watch and
be there.
receive the report.
I'll be there.
I went there to do that.
I know.
Well,
But I
Did
mean-
you end up going there
I
that
did
day?
go, I drove in
Oh,
a snowstorm and
sorry,
everything.
Jill.
No, it's okay, 'cause
It was last minute
I was supposed to
when-
meet,
I think I.
Like, it was last minute, I was literally.
I know, and then, when I
getting
looked at my,
ready to go out
I'm not used to having like the, anyway, and when I looked at it, and I went, oh, I have to learn to read the
So
phone more often.
Jill, did you get, you got copies of it? You came in late, did you get copies? We're gonna add to our meeting tonight?
Yeah, do we have to read these right now?
Yep.
Okay. Gee, too much business.
Yeah,
Christmas.
we really do need to make a decision.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we can.
what order?
Letter
Letter
first.
first, then
Okay.
followed by.
Is this the same one that I saw?
The one that I emailed you late in the afternoon, yeah.
So, I won't say too much because it's in camera, but I
Yeah,
met with Warfield today, right? And the regional district, I'll talk to you later.
okay.
Down at Warfield has been contacted. So I told him the truth.
They said.
We have negotiated arbitration.
Sounds fair, doesn't it?
Sounds like the same old, right? Maybe we should buy everyone in Rossin composting toilets and it would be a lot less costly.
Everyone pee outside.
Get back to nature.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cold out right now.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Sandy Fam, Kathy? Do you remember Sally had those Sandy Fams? Do you remember that little thing? It was like a little pea cup thing for girls. Oh my God, we were at a party once and she brought this thing out because you know how crippled she is.
I remember little
Yeah.
tubes of some sort.
That was it.
Plastic. There you go. I love that line.
Oh, we have to. You gotta be kidding. Crumbs. So we have to pay for everything because we're on the mountain.
Well, you know, our Main Street looks beautiful. Every time I see it with the lights on, the trees up, it is just gorgeous. It's the way a ski town should look.
I thought it's right here that the relative sewage flows. Based upon the relative sewage flows, right? And then here it says. That there's not enough data.
There's not enough, there's not yet.
They're gonna put
Yeah,
meters
until they
in.
put the meters in, The years flew.
Get to number 5, you'll see it.
Sorry.
No, sorry, not meters, necessary volume measuring equipment.
Meters. It shouldn't cost anybody more to flush a toilet. Should all be the same.
I agree.
Wow, I've got so much going on in my head right now, I can hardly even read this.
I know. It's hard to do it sitting here.
You poop in the woods for a year and bring our numbers down.
Mm-hmm.
Content.
Keep this here.
Yay. Yeah.
drinks, I'm going for pizza.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. Hey, sorry I haven't gotten to you about meeting, I just...
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna bring it up tonight, I think.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
Just fine, thank you. Yourself?
Good, thanks.
This table's not reserved for anyone, is it?
The media does sit there, but,
Who sits there?
hmm?
Who sits there?
The delegations and presenters and the staff are on this side. So, you might be okay where you are. If we get 2 media people. I don't know.
Well, Bill and I are here doing a presentation for,
Yes.
so we should be sitting there.
Yeah, when you're presenting. Because there are a couple of presentations.
Well, before us?
I forget what the order is.
What's that?
Oh, Mr. Anderson's just wondering where he should be sitting.
Mr. Harrison, you mean?
Harrison? I was thinking it was Anderson, I'm sorry.
It
Wrong
gets
name.
called worse. Hey?
That's right.
Hey, Johnny?
We have.
No, you're okay, I don't know. Well, press usually sits there, but you can move around, no worries.
Well, that table's already taken, the papers.
Well, I think those will be
moving.
but there's 2 delegations, so you just want to talk in public input?
I think he's with Bill for Esling Lodge.
Oh, you with Esling? Oh, good. Then, yeah, you guys will be there.
Oh, I have my members' report together, but nothing as big as it was last time anyway here.
Can I move this stuff?
What does it say?
City of Rawson, draft financial plan.
Yes, you can move it. Move it over to, where Tracy's sitting there.
I'll put it on this table behind her.
Yeah. And that's what we just did. Kinda. That was good, eh? Yeah?
It was the easiest to understand presentation that I have seen. It was.
Oh, me too. Me too. You smart.
What's going on around here tonight? There isn't any parking.
No idea.
There isn't any
Everything
parking?
across the street, everything here in front of me, all the way down the block, this way, and the other side. And,
Oh, maybe it's a Christmas party at the Prestige or something.
it could be, I guess.
There may be a Julie's too, the garage. Got a satellite store this year?
No. No, I just put a message on the machine today saying if people wanna come in, they can give me a call, and I'll go down. I gotta meet some people tomorrow. I talked to Kevin Maffioli today. He was taking his kids to hockey. He does the same thing. Talked to Kevin Nesbitt.
Same thing.
Oh, he just shuts it down.
Oh.
And leaves his phone number, and if you wanna call him, you can call him and go get the stuff. December.
And, I went to that retirement for Houghton up here, Rob, RCMP,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the RCMP Christmas party as well. It's pretty neat, but actually David Perhunop was actually there. Almost fainted.
Wow.
Yeah. You never see him anywhere, right?
Other than his office?
Yeah. Well, he did, I don't know if he still does, but he did help out with minor hockey a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he still does. I know he did that, but as far as city stuff, never seen.
Hmm. Well, he probably wants to keep a low profile. I would.
No doubt.
Hi, I'm Kerry. I'm Kerry?
You know John?
No.
John Harrison, Terry Fisher. John's, I don't know if I want to say a long-time resident, John, but
Yeah, it was a long time.
former school teacher. How long you been in Roslyn? 50 years over that, right?
Over that.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean that. I knew you weren't 30 anymore, John.
I'm closer to 30 than I am to other figures.
John's here with Esling Park.
Yeah. I gathered that.
John's in here, I'm waiting up there.
John's way ahead of
You guys got front row center. John's not taking any prisoners.
You are.
No.
Deanne's gonna stand up at the public input, right? Yeah.
Oh.
So.
That's all right. She can just come around.
That's ahead of us.
She can just come around. Yeah, that's all right. They're old. They're old. They need chairs. Wonder if we're getting that crew here. They were here for the non-meeting.
23.
Were you here?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
We were doing that.
What, the policy?
Mm.
Did you have many people come for that?
The place all of a sudden got packed, and I asked what they were here for, and they said they were here for public input. I said, well, it's not a meeting. So they were gonna come back tonight. It was on something.
Oh, is it, the Roslyn Stewardship Society?
No, we didn't have that. Well, I don't think they would have. No, it was a sing-song thing, I think. They wouldn't tell us,
And most of them were there.
but it wasn't business, it was shenanigans, I think. Oh, yeah, that is business, shenanigans.
What?
Shenanigans. It was Renee Tremblay, who else was there?
So they all packed up there at the Hill? Are they packed at the Hill?
It was a joke.
Christmas is sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, like one of the choirs.
Did they get those
wanted
tour,
to do
did a bunch of tour people book
a
this
flash
year?
mob thing.
Good.
Whole bunch. We got 5 new ones. That's like,
The people had lunch in the meeting.
Good.
yeah, it's really good.
Cool.
Dan, you might know, why isn't red on the global news thing? I get asked that every day.
Yeah, it's all pay to play. So they just didn't buy the advertising
Ah,
spot
okay.
on it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is fine.
Yes. Yeah, there is another glass.
I coach hockey.
Get home, you can't sleep till 4 in the morning, you drink coffee, right?
Yeah.
No?
And it had to
I
be
used to have.
colder in the rink than it was this is the coldest I've ever been in the Roslyn rink. I mean, games on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. The Kootenai Major Midget boys played right before us both days. Saturday and Sunday, we played both days. A team from Medicine Hat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Southeast Tigers came to play, which is cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Did a big bus ride, yeah.
What's that?
We split it.
This is how
One lost, one- it was good.
Kathy, I'm borrowing your pen, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just looking for it.
To be gone so long.
Yeah. All right, don't let it happen again. Yeah. Where did it go?
I thought it was popping up for a second, and then I got.
Skating on the rink down there yet?
Yeah, I've blown it off. I gotta find a sump pump to, I cut a hole in the ice with an axe, and I wanna put a sump pump in it, use the power, and then I can flood it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna run a hose from my house.
That's for a while, so then that's.
Oh, cool.
But I'd like to flood it. Yeah, there's about 8 inches of ice now.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
See if I can find my old sump pump for you.
if you could find it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I know I've got one, but I don't know minimally where much of anything is, but I'll just see if I can find it for
So
you.
we blew all the snow off, and then, it warmed up there a little bit, hey? And it kinda froze, or melted on the top, but it was still 4 inches, and then it froze again, so now there's about 8 inches of ice.
Yeah.
So, it's safe to go out on.
What about when the water comes in? Is still, is any water going into it?
No, a little bit. But even at the inflows, it's thick.
Well,
Skate on Nancy Green, no problem.
No, I was skating on that one. Yeah. You could see to the bottom of our pond. It was really cool. There was 5 inches of ice, and you could see right to the bottom.
Apparently, my friends went up skating Nancy Green Lake, and when they blew the snow off,
Yeah.
they said the ice was sort of blue, but it was, you could skate and stop and look down straight through the ice, you could see down through the ice, and near the shallows, you could see some fish
Really?
swimming around.
Oh,
It was
that's
really
so cool.
Usually, you know, by the time the snow's off, it's really thick.
Used to go up there and skate with the kids when they were young, but I always went along the edge. I'm a chicken. Like, there was no way. Max go right down the middle with them eyes
Yeah.
going, oh my God.
oh, here, it was nice.
It was beautiful, just black and smooth. Everybody, all the young families were out there. And, yeah, really cool.
Okay.
We got a lot more people down the golf course this year again.
Down there, the
I had three young guys.
Yes,
I
please.
wonder what they were doing.
After dinner mints.
No, they were just messing around out there. I always try to keep an eye on everyone.
Computers don't like the cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Cell phones.
Might be doing donuts.
They have 3 guys now. I've not found one. I think one of them is your son.
Thank you. I just like the candy cane for my kids at school. Thanks. It's very classy. It
Yeah,
is nice.
For a while.
Mine seems to be deformed.
They all are.
Thank you, though.
They're not the hook on the tree kind.
Yeah, they were donuts next to the road.
Yeah, you know, the swap over.
5 minutes, yeah.
The mountain bike guys are now riding dirt bikes. There's a lot of guys that are doing that. They're riding all the trails on the dirt bikes.
I tried on my shoulder, maybe built that.
Yeah.
I wish they would.
Down the car.
I don't know the mystery part, especially coming
That motorized and non-motorized, and divvy it up and not
I talked to 2 years
approach
after.
so much.
Never gonna have that. Snow goers.
The snow machine guys are okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked to them about, I had somebody going around the corner. If you're going straight on a snow machine, it's okay, but if the snow depth is too low and you turn, your snow machine digs in, and we had some damage from that. So I went and talked to them, and haven't had a issue since snow.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, maybe we should just start making our own plans. Yeah, okay, I'll pull up and take that what we do when I. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim, it's now held by the Toronto Dominion Bank.
Oh, really? Okay.
You do it, it's Toronto Dominion.
I'm gonna take one and pass it around. It's for the museum delegation.
You're going tomorrow, eh?
Morning? Yeah.
Good.
The part with, on this where we're talking about, that design of the multi-family thing, you know what I mean? As part of the agenda where we're talking about what.
Forming characters for multi-family
Yeah,
dwellings.
that thing. Anyways, the fact that it's instigated by this design thing, should I be considering a conflict of interest and leaving for that, or is it not?
How is that called?
I'm kind of an employer now. I'm employed by the board, but the board is never up.
That's stretching it, but if you have a conflict of interest, or...
Well,
They had told
this is really, it's applying to everything, right? It's not just this design, it's all multifamily type of
Well, that's a question
thing.
that kind of has
Oh, so it's
the
not
need for-
gonna apply to all of them.
these
You
options.
don't know that.
I got the impression. More to depend, if it's not applying to all of them, then I definitely feel like I would have to do that.
That's the question, though, is if you want to make it a private
Thank you.
home.
So look at this book too, right? There's a few miscellaneous requests in there.
How about I would take care of conflict and leave, and then if you guys decide that it applies to all of them, then come out.
Did, Arlen leave?
Oh, no.
Is there a telegram? He's been persona non grata, really matter. There you go. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the public input period. If anyone wishes to address council, you have 2 minutes of our time. So I know there is someone, so please come forward. Yeah.
Mayor and councilors, I'm here on a purely procedural issue this evening. Just very, very briefly, in your package this evening, there's a request for the Resort Association to amend the bylaws. So, as a reminder, Tourism Rockland is the administrator for the Resort Association, and I do that on behalf of the members. There's 3 resort associations in the province: Whistler, Sun Peaks, and here in Rockland. So this is very obscure legislation, and it is very obscure legislation. The designation is on title of all lots which are located on the former or current Red property lands, including Red Mountain Resort, Long Creek, TMP, Morningstar, and Caldera. So it's registered on title for all of those units there. On behalf of the Red Resort Association, we revised the Resort Association bylaws in consultation with our lawyer at Stikeman Elliott, who originally created the organization, and ratified them at the AGM, which was held in October. As part of the process, we requested your comments prior to the AGM, and none were provided at that time, so we progressed through to the AGM. There's 2 changes in the bylaws that we are proposing. The first issue was with regards to when a person ceases to be a member. In the original bylaws, Part 2, Section 2.4, stated that a member shall cease to be a member on having been a member not in good standing for 12 consecutive months. This actually didn't make any sense whatsoever because it's always registered on title. So that was something that we wanted to remove from the bylaws, and that was suggested by the lawyer in Vancouver. The second issue was just with regards to clarity on the membership fees. The way it was written was a little ambiguous, and I found that it would be much easier for me if it was just very clear about what the membership fees are. So in the new bylaws, the fees are $500 for units which are rented for less than 30 days in duration, and $250 for all other members, with the exception of the commercial members, which we didn't change whatsoever. So our next step is to take these changes to the Ministry of Community Development for their approval. But prior to that, we are asking for a letter of approval from the City of Rockland, which we can use to submit with the rest of the package to the Ministry of Community Development.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. That's coming up in our It's in our agenda already. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address public input? Seeing none, moving right along. A motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on November, adoption of the agenda. Is there a mover? Moved Fisher, seconded by Moore. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of the 25th be adopted. Moved by Moore, seconded by Spear. Discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Delegation, first delegation is from Esley Park. Mr. Harrison and Mr. Perfili, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Harrison is the president of the Esley Park Ward Association, or the Housing Association, I should say, we short. Listening to the previous speaker. What we're here for is to discuss the initial arrangement that the association had with the city of Rawson to secure funding to go ahead with the building some 20 years ago, and that, to get the federal and provincial money involved, the city loaned interest-free to the association as a commitment to the building. $270,000, I think, was the fee. And at the time, there was discussion amongst council about whether it should be a grant or a loan, and the council today decided it should be an interest-free loan, which showed the good faith of the community. And we're here today to discuss the terms requesting a renewal on the same basis of the loan. And just for council's information, we have 23 rooms and about 25 tenants. Some of the tenants, one of the tenants is over 100. Their average age of tenants is about 85. There's about 37 people on a waiting list. The current value of the building is approximately $3 million, and probably the total number of years that the tenants have lived in the community exceed 1,000 years. And one of the things that I know when the building was built, was an issue, is that the official community plan had indicated that there was a need to do something for our seniors as they got older. They couldn't move snow and stay in their houses. And when the provincial government sent in a team to adjudicate the efficacy of the building, the only sites that they would approve were right downtown because of the topography and the weather conditions in Rawson. And they said for the good of the seniors in the community, it has to be where they can in fact access the drugstore, doctors, and groceries without going up or down hills, because it's too dangerous in the winter and most of them don't drive. So we looked for site, and Esley Park was chosen for two reasons. One, it was at the time considered a liability by council because there was expenditures exceeding $1,800 to $2,000 a year to clean it up after all of the parties and the kids' parties that were being had in there, and it really didn't serve a role in the community other than that, because we had to remove all of the equipment, parts equipment and the rest, because of the cost of bringing it up to standard for the CSA approval. So we thought the highest and best use of the park would be to create something like Pioneer Park and locate the building where it was. So the federal and provincial government thought it was a good idea. They approved the site, came up with some initial funding, and the city said, well, the taxpayers need to be protected, so we're not going to give a grant, but we would give the interest-free loan, and the feelings being that at the time that the mortgage is fully paid off, if the city should so choose, they could take title to the building, which would be worth $3 or $4 million. And in the interim, the value of the interest on the loan, when it was calculated, we looked at the building today is paying approximately $25,000 a year in taxes, 13 of which would come to the city, of course, 12 goes to the regional hospital and others. But out of that, the city had no additional roads to plow, no additional services, water or anything. And over and above that, the lodge, of course, pays the garbage and the water fees, meter like everybody else. So the taxpayers, I'm not going to say the taxpayers coming out ahead of the game, but in terms of the overall financial picture for the community, even with if the interest in the loan is taken and considered an annual grant, there's still in excess of about $10,000 or $9,000 a year comes into the city from the building existing, and certainly the number of people that are trying to get into the building and the number of seniors in the building have served a double role over and above just the need to accommodate some of our seniors. It also created an opening for quite a number of, I won't say low-cost housing, but quite a number of sales of older homes, because a lot of the people in the older homes, they put them on the market and younger people were able to buy them. So at the same time where we address the need to look after our seniors, we also created an opportunity for young people to get into some housing that was reasonably affordable, because most of those people are World War II vintage, I guess would be a term, and their houses, so it served a big role in the community. Why doesn't the board just come along and pay? We don't have the ability to just raise rent on the seniors. A lot of them are on fixed pensions, not only tech pensions, but some government pensions. The government came in and assessed the building for us, and I think, John will correct me if I'm wrong, I think they agreed to subsidize 5 rental units for some of the widows, because their income, or not them, some of the tenants, I should say, because their incomes are so low. There's 5 subsidized housing units in there with that the provincial government has agreed to. So, you know, as a business, John can talk to the financial statement, because I think everybody in the room knows that when it comes to finances, I'm less than a genius, and I always admit that. But the board runs it as a volunteer board. We have a part-time secretary and part-time manager looking after some of the work that's done in there. It's run as a business. We built up a reserve fund. We just recently replaced the hot water tank system with a new inline system, one of the new inline systems, and the reserve fund's there for the roof and everything to keep the building to standard, so that, you know, if the city should at some time decide to take it over, that the building is an asset and to protect the interests of the people in it. So what we're proposing to the city is what we'd like to do is see the loan extended till the completion of the mortgage, and then in the following 5 years, we'd pay the loan off in full without any hardship on the tenants, because we would just carry through with the same payments that we're now making on the major mortgage. We'd roll over to the city. So at the end of the program, the city could have access to a $4 million building at virtually no cost to the taxpayers. And as I say, the annual losses would be the interest on the loan, and we think that there's an offset on the tax portion of it because of the fact that the building didn't create any additional workload or stress on the utilities of the community. John?
Yeah, does John want to, yeah?
Well, I can certainly add any comments that would come up as questions about the finances of the building. I have the financial statements here from the previous year at year end. I can tell you that our situation isn't any different now than it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago. We are still tight for money. We managed to set aside a bit of money each year, anywhere between $5,000 and $12,000. We now have a reserve fund of I believe it's $86,000, and we had a big draw on it in the last couple of years because the building is getting a bit old and needs a lot of things replaced in it. But we've just finished raising the rents in there 2 years ago. And we find that each time we raise them, of course, we do get some people coming in and complaining about the difficulty that they're having with the rental raises. Most of the people there are on a fixed income.
They range from what, John, 500 to?
The rentals go from $500 some odd dollars, $504 I think it is, to about $1,000. The biggest unit is $1,000. And we have a number of units in between there. There are 3 at $500, there are 3 at $600, 3 at $700, 4 at $800, 8 at $900, and 1 at $1,000. That's the range of rents in the building. And as Bill said, we do have 23 units there. Most of the units the payments are made automatically on the credit union. And the board reviews the financial statement on a monthly basis. We have monthly meetings. We have 6 directors. Excuse me. And as Bill mentioned, we have 1 paid manager, maintenance man, and the rest, the janitorial work, that are on a part-time basis as needed pretty well. And any maintenance outside, like window washing and repairs, are done as needed. And as people move out, if the building, if the unit needs any replacement in the way of fixtures or parts, it's done at that time. And monies are usually drawn then from the reserve fund. So our reserve fund fluctuates anywhere between $80,000 and $105,000. We dread the thought of the roof ever leaking. We have no idea what that would cost. If I compare it with my home, which was done this past year, at $11,000, half the house was covered, and cost $11,000. $22,000 for the entire house, my house to be done, and I couldn't cover $22,000. And my house is 2,000 square feet. So if I look at the hall up there, $80,000, we may be coming back here for assistance at some future date.
Okay, John, I'll turn it over for questions if you're through.
Oh, I need to say that our mortgage started out with Sun Life, and I think about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, it was changed, and we're now, that mortgage is carried by the Toronto Dominion Bank. The BC Housing Corporation acts as a broker for our mortgage, and they advertise nationally for the good schemes for people like us, and we got a better deal there. Sun Life was anxious to get rid of us too, I think.
Okay, I'll open up for questions now, John, is that right?
By all means.
Councilor Spirit.
Thank you for the information, because I had lots of questions and you answered most of them. How much mortgage is left on the building? What's the cost of the mortgage right now? Do you know that?
The cost of the mortgage, our mortgage right now is at $1,991,000.
Okay.
We pay that down to approximately $38,000 to $45,000 a year.
Thank you.
So in another 21 years or so, the mortgage will be paid off. I believe it's 19.
Sorry, yeah, what was the date?
2039, I believe.
Yeah,
2039.
2039.
2039, I looked it up.
Could be 2039.
Do the residents pay damage deposit when they?
Yes, they do.
So that contributes to when you have to paint or redo or?
Unfortunately, Jill, you're probably aware that with seniors,
Mhm.
and you know, things get spilled and things happen, and virtually every apartment needs some upkeep, and the provincial government sets a standard on the damage deposits.
Mhm.
Most people just leave their damage deposit, but they rarely meet the rehabilitation of some of the apartments. It's just- But when people are 80, 85, and they're living on their own, things get spilled on the floor, and
No, there was a bill, I'm trying to think of that latest bill that the provincial government put in about a year or so ago with regards to multi-housing and having an asset, it's almost like an asset management plan. Are you aware of that? Where you have to project, your infrastructure of that building and the costs, and you have to have a plan in place for multi-housing. I don't know if it applies to the Esling Park Lodge or not. It may not, because it's a society.
it does informally, in the fact that there's 5 subsidized units. The provincial government monitors our financial statement and the actions of the board, because they are subsidizing 5 units, and they basically, they don't monitor an asset management plan, but they do review our business plan when you look at our minutes and that.
So I'm just thinking of that with regards to the roof and the potential renewal of that roof, right? So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Just, I got a quick one too. How many are on the waiting list to get in?
There was 37 a week ago.
Okay.
And 95% of the tenants on waiting list are seniors in Rossland. Some of the seniors very anxious, they've had one member of the family passed away, and it's even difficult to hire someone to move snow now for some of these seniors. There's still a lot of people around that are even moving snow.
Councilor Thatcher?
I imagine all the utilities are paid by the renters and so on. And your reserve funds, they come directly from the rent, or is there a type of strata?
There's no strata on it, it's directly rented.
Okay.
It's set aside to business management plan for that roof.
Councilor Moore?
I have a couple questions. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Are there any stipulations about residency at Esling Park? I mean, do they have to be a certain age, or what age is it?
See, 55.
55.
Oh, 55 and older. Okay, but there's no means testing for income. Anyone could.
The only means testing applies to people who apply for subsidy.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, and it's not restricted to just Rossland residents either. A number of couples that have brought a mother or father, there's no restriction on when residency, there's certainly no restriction on Rossland residency. But fortunately, with the makeup of the board, you have a tendency to know people, and to date, we've not had to ask for financial statements unless they want a subsidy that the provincial government demands.
Okay, you've pretty much got all my questions too there, I think.
Okay, we'll move along, we can come back.
Yeah, we can come back.
I didn't catch what
I've got the 37 waiting list, but how many units are actually in the building?
23, and I think there's 3 buildings have, or 3 units have couples in them, so the occupancy may actually be 26,
Oh, okay.
because there are a number of couple units, but, well, actually, a lot of them are 2 bedrooms or couple units, but.
Right. Councilor Wall.
So, as long as they meet the age requirement, it's first come, first served? Is that the
No.
way it's done?
Yeah, well, yeah, first, well, on the way that it works, Kathy, on the list, it's our manager phones the first person on the list. If they're not ready to come in, and the second person, and it's a funny scenario at times, because sometimes people are on the list and members of their family have said, yes, mom needs to come there, dad needs to come there, we can sell the house and that. So then when it gets right down to it, mom says, well, I'm not moving. So then you gotta go back, and it becomes fairly complex for a manager at times, but it's just a rollover, and the last person that got in, I think, was number 26 on the list, because several people, they, no, I'm not old enough yet, I'm only 80 or 82, and it's.
I've been on the list since 1967.
We're trying to kick them off, president.
Councilor Moore, do you have another question?
Just, you were mentioning the financial statements, maybe when we have this for discussion, we could have a copy of your current financial statements.
This will come back to council.
Yeah, I know, when it does.
Certainly.
I don't know if that would be part of the package, but I'd like to see it.
Well, certainly, yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, anything further? No, thanks a lot, Bill, thanks a lot,
Thank
John.
council for their time and consideration.
This will be coming back to council, as I'm sure you're aware.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I won't tell you who the names on the board are, the Rhodes Gallery.
Tell us who's up now and there. Thanks again. The Historical Museum Associates is next on our agenda. Please come forward.
Bill's one. I think Bill won.
Yes, you have our attention.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a couple of introductions, if I may. We've got 2 new directors behind me, Jim DeLong and Lydia Dukovac.
Lydia.
Jim agreed a week ago to be our treasurer, and in the normal circumstances, he would be making this presentation, but he really has not had time to become familiar with our finances and so forth. So I have asked Vice President Maureen Brown to do a presentation.
Great. You're in the hot seat now.
Yes, I am.
Temporarily.
Thank you for the opportunity to address council. I'd just like to say we've reviewed your draft community funding application, and we're very happy that there'll be a formal document for future submissions. You already have much of our supporting documentation in your package, so our presentation tonight will focus on information that's requested on the draft funding application. So a little bit of history, since we're the Historical Museum. The Rawson Museum first opened on June 12, 1954. It was located in 2 rooms in the basement of the provincial courthouse. And then in 1966, SOD was trying to put the construction of Rawson Centennial Museum, and that opened in 1967 at its present site. Next year will be the 60th anniversary of the museum. For 60 years, it has been showcasing Rawson's history to visitors from all over the world. And that's reflected in our mission statement, which is to preserve and dynamically present the heritage of Rossland and area. As you were aware, since the closing of the Adit, the museum has had a serious reduction in visitors. However, we are endeavoring to change that trend, and through additional events, new programs, a soon-to-be revised website, and a project to digitize the archives and make them accessible over the internet, we are on the right path towards becoming more sustainable. In fact, this year we had 3,009 visitors, which was up from 2,105 visitors in 2012. The funding that we receive from the city is used for staffing. The manager of the museum is now working full-time year-round. There's also a part-time assistant working this winter. This full-time staffing has resulted in research being done in a timely manner, phone calls and emails being returned promptly, pre-planning and organizing for future events, newsletters and newspaper articles being written by staff, and that used to be done by volunteers like me. Social media is also being updated regularly, and that was never done before. The museum will also be open for reduced regular hours during the winter months, and this is the first time that that has happened. We've never had regular winter hours. And through increased exposure and additional events, we anticipate an increase in our visits, resulting in an increase in our revenue. And the activities that we've actually got planned for 2014 including continuation of our guest speaker series that was very popular last year, an increase in the variety of items in the gift shop, including local crafts, an artisans market prior to the farmers market opening, a summer concert, repeat of the highly successful Do You Know Where the Wild Things Are, an archival photo day, which will encourage people to come up and see what photos we have and to order copies, continuing education programs and reaching out to the schools and the colleges. And we already have the University of Calgary comes on regular visits to look at the geology displays up there. Without the support of the city, the museum would not be viable. We are making great efforts to become more sustainable and become a dynamic part of the community. So we ask for your support as we pursue this goal.
Thanks very much. Do you have anything, Libby, or is there you leave it at
There is one thing I would like to add at this point, and then we can answer any questions you may have. But in the package that you received, there was an error in the 5-year budget, which was brought to my attention. Thanks, Kathy. The one that you received was when we realized we'd made an error, and I got today from Joyce the correct 5-year budget, which reflects, in the one that you got, it said 54,000 was what we were asking for, but in fact we were asking for the same as last year. And so I brought a copy in for everyone to see that, and it reflects the true picture, or truly what we're asking for, and I truly apologize for that error. I didn't catch it when I brought it in. So,
Great, so any questions? Councilor Moore?
Thank you for coming. It was a good packet, good presentation. Thank you. Have a couple of questions. When you look at the attendance figures, I know I don't think there is included here. Have you analyzed it by month to see where you're starting to get those increases? Because I know you're open only certain days and certain months in your experience. So did you get more increases by being open in the winter or by extending your hours longer in the fall?
During the usual season, the monthly hours or monthly visitors are tracked. I just didn't include that in the package, but if council would like that, I think our manager can provide it.
Well,
and as far as the being open in winter and later in the fall, because being later in the fall was the first time that we'd ever done that, opening until Thanksgiving, so it's very difficult to compare. And this is the first winter that we're going to be open for 4 afternoons a week. So once again, until we've done it, it's kind of a trial period, really, you might say. So I can't really answer that question fully.
Okay. Well, it's just good to be able to track it so you know where to put your resources, right, if you end up being strong.
I've asked our manager to make sure that she tracks everything very carefully, and she has agreed to do that. So.
I was interested in your suggestion that maybe you'll do a gold panning competition, because well, you never know. I mean, over in little tiny Princeton, they have this like old folk music festival, and it just draws tons of people. And I don't know anything if gold panning competitions are a little niche market that people are really interested in, but if they are, it would be a great thing to do to bring in people not just to the museum but to town.
Our winter staff are investigating such things as how to put on the gold panning competition, because Sam McKenna, who was extremely popular both on Family Day and Golden City Days, thinks we should host the World Gold Panning Championships. But you have to do 3 annual competitions first before you become eligible. So our staff are investigating exactly what's involved and what the cost might be to put it on and look at the logistics. But I think it'd be a great idea. He says that World Championships could bring in over 800 people just for the competition itself with their entourage, which would be great for the city of Roslyn.
If we could handle 800. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councilor Blooming.
Okay, so on the Roslyn Historical Museum stats, it says visitor center parties and visitor center visitors. I'm just wondering what that's really referring to, parties versus visitors.
The visitor center stats, there's both the museum stats and the visitor center.
Okay.
The visitor center stats is the way in which it's determined how much money the visitor center gets. The more visitors we have to the visitor center, the more money the visitor center gets in terms of revenue for us. The museum stats can be different because not all visitors to the visitor center actually go into the museum. And Joyce was explaining to me that when she does the museum stats, if a family comes in, it's one party, so it doesn't necessarily reflect the actual number of visitors. As with the income from visitors, if a family pays a family rate, there could be 10 people in that, and they pay one rate, so revenue is not necessarily reflected in the museum stats. Does that answer your question? Maybe.
I think so, actually, yeah. So, for example, for 2013, visitor center parties, visitor center visitors, so that would mean the 1,700 means there was that many.
I think the parties was actually the museum. I don't know where she's put visitor center, but the visitor center visitors is the number to the visitor center.
Okay. But not parties. Okay.
Parties could be one person or 10 people. I don't know why we do it that way.
More questions? Councilor Moore?
Yeah, I was curious, I'm looking at your strategic plan in 2011, which looks good, and I know you've accomplished quite a few of the things that you set out to do in there. That was good, but I'd like an update on the results of your membership drive. Has that been something that's happening and something that's successful?
Yes and no. We've tried. We had, for the first time a year ago, we had a table a couple of times in for our food. We've also tried to make it more attractive this year by, if you buy a membership, you get unlimited visits to the museum, whereas before it was a certain number and that was it. And we just felt that that might encourage more people. And in fact, we did get one or two more families buying for that reason, especially families with young kids, because the kids don't last very long. So we feel that once we get going more on the gateway project, that there will be added interest possibly.
So do you keep track of how many members you do have, and is that number going up or down?
But I wasn't able to get an accurate figure at this point, and I've asked for it to be broken down exactly because the way it's been recorded up to now is more like, for instance, if my husband and I are members, we become one person and then there's one email, but it should really be two.
The other thing you talk about, your increasing collaboration with Tourism Roslyn and Chamber of Commerce, and I'm wondering what efforts and progress have been made along there.
Well, as far as Tourism Roslyn is concerned, we do have regular attendance at meetings. There's always, or usually someone from the Museum Association there. We've been working together on things like bus tours, the shuttle bus, we've participated in that, the golden ticket. We talk regularly, and we try to find ways in which we can help to fulfill the Tourism Roslyn mandate of keeping heads in beds. So there's that. Is there another one?
No, that was the other one was the Chamber. If you've done
The Chamber,
any
we
collaborative
do keep in touch on a regular basis with them. The other thing that we have been trying to do, I know I did go and look at our strategic planning session, and we did suggest that we would increase our organizational development, and we now have terms of reference for directors and for each committee in place. We continue to work on policies and procedures manual, which had not been in place before. We now have job descriptions in place, which have not happened. And our mission and vision statements have been updated and established. So those are a few things we've tried to do. And we also now have regular committees to take care of different areas. So we're trying to move along in that direction.
Great.
One last one about, oh, sorry. Get her.
I just had highlighted here the page about volunteer hours and the value of the total hours. I just wanted to point out that I really think that you guys are undercutting yourself by saying $12 an hour, because really the quality of the work and the work that you're referring to, I think the market value would be higher.
And I say that my husband, who did some plumbing,
well, there you go.
$12.
Exactly.
I would not be doing this for that.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I think it would be much more. That figure I got from 2 years ago from the museum in Cranbrook, the Railway Museum. And I think it would probably be much more realistic to put it at least at $15.
At the very least.
At the very least. So maybe next year we'll do that. But I also, in terms of the volunteer hours, it's way more than...
Oh, exactly.
Because we have at least 2 directors people who never record their hours and spend hours up there. So we're going to have to find a better way of tracking that, for sure.
Councilor Moore.
Yeah, so you get, sort of revenue of $6,000 for running the visitor center, right?
It's a little bit over that, but it depends on visitor stats too.
Okay,
So the more visitors,
oh, more
the more
money.
money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, because I know part of the visitor center is run by the chamber when you guys are closed, right?
It has been in the
right?
past.
No, tourism
And
office?
it's actually,
No.
it's a satellite.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if
We
the funding
still
will
have the
change.
license.
Okay.
The museum still has the license, but we were able to allow the chamber to do it in those years. This year, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Because we're open.
But you're not open 7
Yeah.
days a week, right?
You don't have to be open 7 days a week as far as the license is concerned.
Okay.
We have someone there 5 days a week.
Okay. Okay, right,
Okay.
your manager's there. Okay,
Yes.
okay, I'm just wondering if that number is gonna change, so.
Thank you, ladies. Yeah, actually, what I had highlighted, both Councillor Boomy and Councillor Moore have addressed, but I was curious about the collaboration with Tourism Rosslyn. That was one of the things, so you clarified that. I appreciate that. Do you collaborate with the Heritage Commission? Is
Oh,
there?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, because I know
We-
that. Sorry, go ahead, Minnie.
We just have different mandates.
Mhm.
So we do talk,
Mhm.
but they're buildings and land,
Mhm.
and we're the other stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
had joint
But we
things.
have had joint functions,
Right.
like, when Jackie put on that cemetery tour,
Mhm.
the cemetery is under the jurisdiction, as it were, of the commission,
Mhm.
but she did it with us.
Mhm.
So that was one. And then, if you recall, on Heritage Week,
Mhm.
she had the tea and Heritage Homes in the Bank of Montreal. And we came in there at the same time, and we had an archival display as to how you could have your heritage home or your older home research. So we worked together on that.
Mhm.
Those are just the 2 examples.
Mhm. I just know that in the Heritage Commission minutes, and I had made some notes about kind of that whole collaboration thing between Museum, Heritage Commission, Tourism Rosslyn, Chamber, and how that the different groups are interfacing and really coming together to promote heritage, arts and culture and heritage tourism in Rosslyn. And I just wonder if that is is there a big conversation going on about that?
Well, I think we're working towards that. We're trying to get the word out because I know that heritage tourism is becoming a much greater thing, and especially with our so-called aging population. And, you know, there are more and more people who are getting interested in it. And so it's to our advantage to work together, for sure.
Absolutely.
And Dan at Tourism, is she still?
Yeah.
Dan has been great in helping to promote it too.
Great.
And I'm noticing.
I'm glad to hear that because,
Yeah.
I know it was a little bit segregated over the years, and so if it's coming together, that's just an advantage for all of you and for the community, so appreciate that. And the other thing Councillor Blumey brought up about underpaying your volunteer or the value of it, so, I think that's a good point. And I really like the strategic plan, you know, it's well done, it's got really good focus and direction, and as usual, I always say this, that I think that the kids in our community, as in the educational component, can be enhanced immensely, and I've talked to you about that personally too, and I think it's really important.
Very strongly about and really working, because we recognize the fact that, you know, the mine tour was closed, can't do it, and school visits dropped hugely, and we feel that you can still have fun, but we should be looking at it more as an educational component as well for the children of the community and others in the area. So that's what we're going to promote.
And maybe a punch pass, that's the last thing I'll say, maybe some kind of a punch pass if you didn't want to have a membership and you didn't want to go only once, maybe a little punch pass for 3 times or 5 times, could be a little gift. And the last thing, the little mining video is great. And I think
Glad
that's,
you like that.
yeah.
Okay, great. Any more questions?
Sorry. Those are my comments.
Okay.
Everyone took my questions.
Seeing none, thanks very much, Lydia. Thanks, Maureen. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, item 6, the request for a decision, the Cook Avenue School Site Form of Character Guidelines from the Assistant Planner.
I'm out of here.
Okay.
7:38.
And we'll figure it out in 2 seconds.
All right, I'll be here.
We'll see. Okay, just the fact that Cesare is partly boss kind of thing. Anyway, she thought it best, so that's her decision, okay? All right, is there a motion that council direct staff to review the draft form and character guidelines that updates the developer guidelines, form character for all multiple family developments in Roslyn? Is there a mover to that staff
I'd like to add
recommendation?
one word to it, but I make the motion.
Why don't you make the motion and add the word?
Okay, the council directs staff to review the draft form and character guidelines with interested stakeholders, e.g. developers, design review, and citizens. And when completed, draft an OCP amendment bylaw that updates the DP guidelines for the form and character for all multiple family developments in Roslyn. I just want to add the public in there.
Okay, second or that? Second by Spear, discussion.
Oh, maybe I should leave too.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah, I'll leave.
Don't want
Small
to bring it
town.
back. Apparently Jody's in with the pizza.
Yeah, have another piece of pizza.
Yeah, that's it.
Just wait a second.
Okay.
Councilor.
Okay, I think this is really well done. I'm really glad to see it. I think that it makes sense to apply it to all multifamily. There's nothing unique about Cook, so it makes sense to apply it everywhere. And it's all, it's all good stuff. I added the public to it because having just come off our very successful collaboration of having, meaningful council input and then an opportunity for the public to come in and, make their comments on it and then go to the next stage of finalizing the application, all that. It seems like it was much smoother than some of the other ways we've done something where we kind of approve something and then people go crazy and then we go back and, that. So that's what I thought by adding the public in there. And we could do it as you know, we could do it as another public session where people come in and give their comments to it, you know, just like they did the last
So we
time.
would just
Yeah.
advertise and make it public.
Yeah, so that's,
Okay.
that's the main thing. I have a couple of specifics in there, but you can talk to somebody else first.
Well, Councillor Stern seconded.
Yeah, I also think it's very well done and comprehensive and, easy to understand. I'm looking at landscaping, the last bullet that says the city may, so that's on page 49. The city may request a 1-year guarantee on plantings and 125% letter of credit to be provided based on a landscape professional estimate if necessary. I wasn't really sure about the 125% letter, but I was a little bit concerned about only a 1-year guarantee for plantings. I don't know if that's something that's, it's just a detail, but, you know, a plant, you know, a tree goes in and, you know, it lasts for the first winter, but then it doesn't last for the next winter, right? So I just thought that was a really short time frame.
I think,
on that?
if the motion goes through,
It will go back,
we'll get back
okay.
the information,
Okay,
right?
then, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, then I don't have any.
Way over here? Yeah, Councillor Thatcher first.
I thought it was really well done. I think everything there's, you know, I think it fits into the guidelines, I think what most of us are talking about. There's only one question, I don't know if anybody here can answer it, is the ridge line for roofs, is it 50 feet? Anything over 50 feet?
That's what it's saying here.
And like Cook Avenue, it's 13 meters?
12 meters.
Well, 12 meters, but it says the principal ridge line must not exceed 50 feet before the ridge line must be offset or shifted. And I'm not sure if it's a typo error, or is that?
Your worship, I'll get that clarified for when we bring back, and same with the 1 year thing.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't say 50 feet.
I think that's just, anyway, I think it's just a break up.
It's a total of it or
It's
something.
to break it up, but anyway, we'll get clarification on that. Councillor Walsh?
I'm certainly in support of moving this forward in this way, so I don't have a problem with that. I do have a comment about the roofing. It just seems that this is kind of directed more towards aesthetics than the function of a roof and what it does in Roslyn. And I know that, you know, a lot of the buildings that do have the multi-homes, I mean, it's just an ice jam waiting to happen, and it leads to leakage. So it's just a comment, and it'll be interesting to see what developers and builders, et cetera, think of that.
I agree. You had another one?
Well, I had that same one about that, you know, and I was just wondering whether that had been considered, the ice damming and all of that. The other thing I had, also a question about the 125%, the letter of credit, is that as strong a tool as a bond? Is it the same thing? I don't know the specifics of that. Can we ask through to staff if that's,
And you'll have to get an answer for that, I guarantee.
Okay.
I don't know strength-wise with that.
Yeah, I'm just curious because, and I'm also curious what conditions would trigger that requirement, because it says it might be, I'm not sure what page that's on, page 48. It says maybe, but I'm, you know, it's sort of like, well, is there what triggers the requirement that you get that letter? I'd like to see that spelled out, or at least explained to me. And also whether letter of credit is as strong as a bond. And then, you know, once the city's recourse of landscaping, you know, needs to be done and they're out of money. I mean, if you have a bond, you've actually put up money. If you have a letter of credit, I don't know that, you know, so you can find that out.
I'll find out for you.
Okay. And then the other thing, what would be the consequences if the guidelines aren't followed? What happens if, you know, we say, oh, you've got to have such and such, and they don't do it?
The guidelines though, right?
Yeah. But I suppose we could not approve whatever the plan is or something.
Put something on title or something, I guess, I don't know. You're not approved, I don't know.
I would suggest that the building permit wouldn't be issued.
Okay, so we are gonna.
But I will ask for clarification of consequences.
Yeah, that would just be something good. And then the other thing under access on page 48, where access has 2 bullet points, I think actually there should be a minimum number of access to public roadways should be its own bullet. So, and that's it. Otherwise, I think it looks great.
Okay, I got just you had a statement, just a statement to make a statement. I have a bit of an issue with telling people what they can use to put on the outside of their house.
Yeah,
I have
I
a
know.
huge issue with that.
I
I built our house 25 years ago, and I used every nickel of my disposable income to build it. And I put on vinyl siding because that's what I could afford. And quite frankly, I don't think it's ugly.
If somebody thinks it's ugly, that, so be it. But I think it's very, I don't know, nose in the air to tell people what they can put on the front of their building. That's my comment.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I thought of you when I read that. I honestly did. I did. And you know what? Vinyl siding is practical and it's, you know, economical and it makes good sense for our kind of climate. And I think that, you know, those are really, I mean, if, you know, people want to choose wood, which I've got a wood house, which just invites every, you know, bug on the planet. So, you know, that's not practical really. So yeah, I think that's kind of unfair and a little bit.
I think we can wait and see what comes back.
Yeah, but I did think of you, and
thank you for
I
better than Tyvek.
have a question on that. What is the siding that Cesaria's used on the duplexes? Because it's not wood, it's a faux something or other.
Hardy plank.
It's that hardy board, I think.
It's like hardy board. Is that an expensive thing or not
Mhm.
expensive?
Yeah.
Is it? So it's more expensive than the vinyl, okay.
Okay, anyway, that's
Okay.
just
Do you have
comments on
vinyl?
that, and we'll get,
Do you have wood?
Okay.
we'll get the public to come back with that, right? Okay?
Yeah.
So on the
Yeah.
motion, all in favor? Opposed, carried, thank you. Somebody wanna,
I'll get it.
They're eating all the rest of the pizza.
Yeah, eating my lunch.
They may not come back.
time you got exactly, Cynthia?
7:47.
Yep.
7:47.
Yeah, I think you too, when you read that final side.
We all did. Yeah, no, that's you were in fine. our I thought.
Look at all the houses.
Very defensive of vinyl
Tyvek,
siding.
I am defensive.
You go down to Ladner, my sister
Well,
lives,
it's
and everything's
expensive.
vinyl siding, and
Well,
it's
you're
just
right,
different
though.
colors.
It's
You can use
practical
different
side
colors
to it.
in vinyl,
Yeah.
right? Which
Pink,
would,
blue,
Pass that down.
gray.
purple.
You pass that to Trace.
Okay, moving right along. Pretty happy? We're at 7, recommendations from staff for decision, request, to apply for the council authorized staff to apply for the cycling infrastructure partnership program grant for 25 grand. Moved by Spear, seconded by Moore. Discussion?
No, I think it's another wonderful opportunity for Rawson to enhance the trail system. The only, and I think that's a great one. It makes really good sense, particularly that when I see kids and adults walking along the highway. Hopefully that would take them off of the highway and to get to the Pinewood area. And the only thing I wanted to add that staff could maybe pass on to planning is that the Louis Joe Trail, the stretch from just adjacent. No, I want, it's about money. It's about money. It's about finishing the Louis Joe Trail, because it's not finished.
This is a different.
No, but I know, but
Okay,
could
well,
part of
let's
that
make it quick.
grant, a small portion of the grant,
Can't do that.
be used to finish that section of Louis Joe that never got finished?
The answer is no.
Why?
This is for a different project.
I know, but it's still the same trail active transportation plan. Anyway, it was just a question because.
No, and that's, I think I answered it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Councilor Moore?
Yeah, I support this also. You know, the active transportation plan was adopted in 2009, and the goal was to slowly go after and build that network. And I think as long as we get grant money to do it, it makes sense to do it. Obviously, we're not gonna, you know, fund it 100% on our own, but I think it's a good effort. Good grant to apply for.
Councilor Fisher?
You can go with Tracy first and then.
Oh, I
I
didn't see
just
you.
wanted to update council that, Stacy just sent me a text message to say that we have approved, we have got MOT approval to build a trail on the right of way, so.
Oh, good.
Just an update.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary?
Okay, so I'm a big trail supporter, but I have to say that in terms of planning, since we just had a budget presented to us, that going forward, when are there enough trails for a town of 3,000 people? When do we have enough? And the answer is not, we just keep building them, I don't think. And while I support this funding application, I have to say that we don't have a plan going forward. The manager for Public Works at some point is going to be asked to maintain these things. We may not always have the Trails Society fixing things up. We could have catastrophic rainfalls that cause ribletting and damage all over the place, and we'll have to fix them. We could have a giant windstorm knocking down hundreds of trees. And this is not stuff that I'm making up. This is stuff that's happened already in the past. So I think that City Council, while jumping on opportunities is good, I still think we have to have a plan that says, this is the number of trails we're going to have, and here's our budget for maintaining those trails. And whether we give money to the Trail Society for that, or we do it through Public Works, we still need a budget for it, and we need to set that out. That's it.
Okay, I think I'm just gonna chime in there on that same note. When is enough is enough. For this, the grant is for 25 grand, and it suggests that the other 25 grand we will put in from taxes. The next thing, if you wanna look at the active transportation plan and see the budget there, what the heck was it? It's quite interesting. The old rail bed down to, I guess, St. Paul really doesn't need very much at all. But then the next section, where you go around the corner up past the Alpine Grind, they're talking about main retaining walls, et cetera, et cetera. And if you get into retaining walls along the side of that highway, along the Alpine Grind, and there's talk about a ramp, I don't know where the heck that ramp is, but if someone's going to maintain that set of infrastructure from Columbia down around the corner behind Joe Trinkle's there, where the rail grade comes out, quite frankly, it to me it's ridiculous. I mean, if you came out at the rail grade out at the highway, and then you cross the highway to St. Paul, where we already have infrastructure that goes up, that feeds up to Leroy, follow Leroy, and you're downtown. This corner here is not going to fit within a $50,000 budget at all. Period. If you got the active transportation plan in front of you, everybody looking at it?
Well, I've got the numbers.
Okay, but anyway, 140 meters of Type 1 trail within the Highway 3B road allowance. So that's on the road allowance that Tracy's just talking about. That's $5,000. Complicated construction, retaining walls, etc. If you think you're going to build that for $5 grand, it's not going to happen.
No.
It isn't even going to be close to happening.
Well, I think she says that it's 50,000, right? The estimate in here that,
For the whole project.
yeah, that Spooner had in there was 25 for the whole project, right? But I think she's saying 50,000 for the whole project.
I'm just going to go through the budget if I can.
Okay.
$4,000 to install 8 signs. What do you think? $10,500 to put gravel on the surface. Why are we graveling a surface? Why are we putting gravel on the old rail grade? It's perfect. It's been there over 100 years. It's not eroding. It's smooth. So just to say we're going to apply for a grant, that's fine. I think you have to remember that it isn't free. It's 25 grand. And I also think that this part of the transportation plan hasn't been thought out very well, because you cannot, without significant costs, turn that corner and go up around by the Alpine Grind. So you just can't. And then if you're going to maintain it in the winter, somebody better look at that. So if council wants to apply for a grant, I think that's fine. But I think that we need to tune this up a little bit. This is where we're going to go. Councilor Wallace.
When is the deadline for the
January
grant
9th.
application?
January 9th.
Oh, it's January 9th, so,
You still apply for the grant, I think.
Oh, I am in support of applying for the grant. I'm in support of this because I know how wonderful the other new one from last year is in getting people off the highway. And it's the same support that I feel for this one. We do have a lot of kids walking down to Pinewood, et cetera, and I suppose they have other options, but they're a lot longer around. And I know the new trails that went in up, there's Upper Columbia, is that what we call them? There's a lot of people using them now from Black Bear, and it gets them off the highway. That was a real safety concern. So that's the support I feel for this one, but I'm also hearing the mayor and his comments about the cost of construction, and maybe we could have our planning staff look at altering this route slightly in order to make it make more sense.
There definitely are ways to alter it a little bit, but you mentioned children on the highway. What this does is it actually filters people onto the highway. That's what this does. Councillor Spear.
Well, I appreciate everyone's comments. You know, I'm a strong advocate for continuing to build the trail infrastructure in Rossland. And how many I mean, we've got an active transportation plan, and we have a plan. When you ask about, you know, where's the plan? Well, we have a plan. I was going to suggest if this isn't the trail, maybe there's another smaller project that we could apply it to that would, in the plan, I haven't looked, you know, at something as an alternative right now, but maybe there's another trail that would benefit from us applying for this grant and using it that's less cumbersome and costly to develop. But I think we'd be doing a disservice to our community if we all of a sudden stop focusing on trails because they are infrastructure. They are modern day infrastructure, and I know pipes and roads and all that stuff, and you talk about core services, but you know, the trail system is bringing people to our community both to live and to play, and I think we'd be unwise. I mean, look at the Louis Joe Trail. It's, you know, that was a huge project and it got built from top of town all the way down to Redstone, and you know, it's a fabulous trail that gets used all the time. So
yeah.
I understand what you're saying about the infrastructure, and that does make makes sense for sure.
I think that it could still happen if council wishes to apply for this grant. It could still happen, and you know, it's the old. Well,
Do you have
it
to?
It goes back to other discussions we've had about grant applications, and we could always, at the end of the day, say no.
Yeah.
That's what we were going to, right? But there are ways that this could be adjusted that makes it go up St. Paul, but you're still somewhere you're crossing the highway. So.
If I could just add, when Councillor Wallace was talking about the safety aspect also, you know, the option for kids is to come up Park Street, which is, you know, it's treacherous in the winter when it's snowy and slippery. It's very dangerous, right? So,
the kids are now using the rail grade now?
Yeah. Without any fixing up.
Without gravel in it and all that. But anyway.
So maybe there's another option, that's all.
That's right, but we can still apply for the grant.
I agree.
Well, could we modify the motion?
I don't know that we have to modify the motion. I think we can apply for the grant, and if the trail has to go somewhere else, it has to go somewhere else.
Okay, well, just because it says as indicated in active transportation plan, if we just took that out and asked it, we referred to staff for some modifications to that.
Well, I think we can apply for the grant. I think we could apply for the grant under that, and if there's modifications, you just say, well, we gotta go somewhere else.
Okay.
Who's first? Patrick?
Yeah, I'm for applying for the grant. You know, and modifications to this trail, I think, are needed. But I mirror Councillor Fisher's comment on the maintenance of these trails. Like, we're going to have to start budgeting for trail maintenance, and it's going to be, it could be quite costly. As you say, some 20-year storm like we've been having every year seems to be, you know, it could be quite costly in the future to maintain these trails. And you know, how many trails, you know, are needed. I can see, you know, the active transportation plan is a good plan, but where are we gonna, you know, start budgeting for maintenance? It's going to be a costly venture in the near future, I think. So.
I'll just make an amendment to my comments and say that, yeah, there's a plan, but at the time that you make that plan, everybody's excited about having a trail network, but they're not, I don't think, considering at the time when are the number of trails enough, because there's trails being built all the time all over the place. And I'm going to reserve comment on the Louis Joe Trail, because there are serious issues with the Louis Joe Trail. But that can be another discussion. The actual amendment that I would make is that we have to put it into budget discussions and say there's discussion around the maintenance of these trails going forward. And then we can fix a number to it. And then the public is, you know, at that time, if they want, let's pick a number, 300 kilometers of trail. I don't know what the number is. that's the number that we pick, and then we maintain those, and maybe we take some offline and put some others online, but we have a fixed number so that we can know what the budget is to maintain those going forward. I think that's simple.
Yeah, I think it's simple, but I think we could still apply for the grant,
Oh, yeah.
get the budget, and then make the decision with any changes or whatever that could come back to make it look better or worse, whatever, okay? Yeah?
And just for, I don't want to dwell on it, but as far as maintenance goes, if we did have some kind of a, you know, a windstorm or some kind of, you know, natural disaster that created all these problems on our trails, I can guarantee you that there would be hundreds of Rosenders who would take their chainsaws and volunteer. So I don't think it always has to be paid staff to help out. We know that.
I'll comment on that.
So.
Then there should have been hundreds of Rosenders at the bottom of the Louis Joe Trail, cutting down all the thistles that were there for the last 300 kilometers, all summer long when I put myself out there and did it. Yeah, it got done, but the city didn't do it. And the volunteers didn't do it.
All right.
Anyway, good enough.
On the motion to apply, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Undoubtedly, though, this is something that we're really gonna have to discuss, because without a question of doubt, this is getting to the point where we know that we have an infrastructure deficit, and this isn't helping. That's all. Regular meeting schedule. Motion that council approve the 2014 regular council meeting schedule. Moved by Thatcher, seconded by Moore. Discussion on that. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Granted aid policy number 308, community funding application from the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. The council approved the grant and aid policy 0308 and the accompanying community funding application form. Moved by Fisher, seconded by Thatcher. Discussion.
I found the typo, but I don't know. I can't remember where it is now.
Okay, well,
I'll get it to you.
Look for it. There you go. Get it. Councilor Wallace.
I wasn't able to attend either of the public input sessions last week, so I was wondering how well they were attended.
The evening one wasn't that great. The day one was great.
Oh, there's a lot to say.
During the day, there was quite a few people.
And what kind of comments were received?
Mostly, it looks good, and then a couple minor things were mentioned, right?
A few minor edits, and that was it.
Okay.
Mostly just support for having the process put in place.
Okay, great. And then the question I have is whether Blackjack Nordic Ski Club is on the list for an agreement with them.
They don't receive funding from them.
They are stewards of a piece of property owned by the city.
That's outside of this though, and I think that's for discussion though, for sure. But this is outside of this policy.
Okay, well,
I know what you're
that's
saying.
where my curiosity was, whether...
Right, just because they're using our lands.
Yeah.
We've had the discussion about,
They're gonna put in a grant application again.
but, Councillor,
Yeah, I think it's...
this is outside of this, but
Okay.
we will have that discussion, and I have that discussion with staff. I don't wanna get into it right now.
Okay.
Okay, but it's a point for sure, and we've had the discussion as well. Okay, anything further on this policy? No? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. A letter from Red Resort Association and a motion that council approve Red Resort Association's proposed changes to the society's bylaw as per the Ministry of Community Development approval process. Moved by Moore, seconded by Spear. Discussion. Spear.
I was just curious about the second one, and I'm scrolling to find the other red line. To change I was just curious, anyway, it's all good.
I was curious. Can I ask one question?
About the
now?
500 versus 250
Yes,
or
I thought you
something.
never have.
I'm just wondering whether the rate had changed or
Yeah.
whether it was just the wording to describe the rate that had changed. It was just the wording. Okay, thank you.
Sorry I didn't let you ask that question before and to the end as well, but it's public input period, and if I start getting discussions of public input period, we'll be here for that. Hence my call. Councilor Thatcher.
I was just curious, are the rates all in line with the other two municipalities that were mentioned, Sun Peaks and Whistler?
That's, I think it was this is pretty much outside of the municipality, this is not,
Yeah.
you know, they're just asking the municipality if we have any objection to it, right? And we don't, so, I mean, if they wanna have it 10 times higher or whatever, go ahead. Well, really, it's not our business. Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Information items, the motion to receive the information items, subject to the following. Mover to that. Move Spear and second to Wallace. Discussion. Any items?
Yeah.
Okay, what are they?
Okay, I've got BCFHIK. Sorry.
Thatcher?
No.
Wallace? Wall, you got any? Okay, I'll come back.
Oh,
to you.
throw G in there. Just 'cause.
Yeah, G's the only one. Blooming.
Well, either none or my highlights are the same, so probably none for now.
Okay, Fisher?
Just G.
G's there.
D.
Start with B.
It's actually BNC, and it's the Heritage Commission, and, I guess I was just, I got, actually my questions kind of answered from Libby Martin about that sort of liaison between those groups, so, I'm happy to hear that they're working nicely together, so that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay, further on B. Moving to C.
Now, C's the same.
Okay, what, didn't you have, no, you had D.
Well, no, I have some comments on C. I
Sorry.
think that was Jody that said C.
No, it wasn't.
I said C.
You said C, okay. Well, I have some comments on C. So, they are asking for their budget, to go to budget discussions, which is great. And then they also had two recommendations in there. One was that the city designate someone, to keep the downtown Roslyn album updated. And I'm wondering, what is this? I don't know what that is.
It's on my desk, you want to see it?
Well, I'm just curious what it is. You
No,
can tell me.
it's just, when buildings have been, when the facades have been changed or whatever,
Yeah.
keep a track, keep a record of it. It's photographs, it's
Oh,
simple.
okay. So that would be something that's appropriate for the city to do as opposed to the Heritage Commission to do themselves.
Well, it should be kept in planning, right?
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. Okay, yeah, okay. The other thing was, they wanted the city to get involved in marketing heritage. And I'm thinking, you know, we've got Tourism Roslyn and we've got the Heritage Commission, and it seems like they should be working together to market heritage, not the city. Like in this,
Yeah, that's-
they're asking us to market, and I'm not prepared to say, yeah, no, the city's gonna take over marketing of heritage,
A little
right?
bit of background on that is, it was suggested that we have a better access to our heritage on our website. And the
Oh.
website is definitely
Mm.
something that needs some adjusting, so that's where they're talking.
Okay, so, but that would be the kind of thing that
With
they
links,
would
with
bring
links.
material,
Yeah.
they would bring material and update, and update the
Yeah.
website. Okay, because I was
That's what they-
hearing
that's what they
these
want.
things of Heritage Commission not working with Tourism Roslyn, and Tourism Roslyn not working with Heritage
No,
Commission.
it's outside of that.
It's outside of that, okay. Okay, then I won't make my suggestion, which is that you sit down with both groups and figure out which way they can get over their barriers and work together. Don't need to do that. Okay, that's good.
Why me?
Well,
Yeah, moving right along, D.
Okay, D was me, that's Sustainability Commission minutes. The commission made a recommendation to ask for $1,000 for the remainder of this year, and that's just to tide them over until budget discussions are made, and they're gonna put a request in for some money for next year, but it's just for, I mean, we may not get our budget settled for, you know, a couple months into the new year, right? So they were just asking for some money. So to say that, to put this request for $1,000 into budget discussion kind of defeats the purpose of what they're after. They just wanted some transition money, and they're also gonna put in a budget request for 2014.
What's the 1,000 for?
You know, I've written to Terry to ask him for some specifics, but I
Exactly, I
didn't
mean,
hear.
when Mr. Miller was here and presented to council, and he said, I don't even have any money to buy pizza. That's what he said, sitting in that chair.
Yeah, I'm not sure he really meant that. I think he was being a little
Well,
flip
that-
on that, but,
Anyway, I think that if they had a legitimate, wanted 1,000, then they should come back with a legitimate
okay.
request.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that people understood that it wasn't, that's not what they're asking for next year, so it wouldn't really apply to
Wow.
2014. Okay, so I'll just say need to be specific. Or actually, Jill, you can say need to be specific, since if you're able to make the meeting. Okay, that was it.
F.
And I was just gonna add to that, that we did allow them that $500 to
Sure.
go on that conference, so we've
That's
already,
right.
and so if it is specific, then I would support it, but otherwise, I don't
We've
see
done
any-
that, right?
Yeah.
We've done that. If
Yeah.
they come with something
Yeah.
that we wish to proceed with, then we've done that.
Yeah.
F.
Okay, F with me, that's the Friends of the Rosin Range, and I guess I just, trying to read through all that information was overwhelming. I wrote down not well compiled. So, that was, press isn't here, so I'm okay.
Oh, no, I won't say it.
Okay, so anyway, it seems to be a bit of a contentious issue, this whole concept of this recreational management plan, and I've talked to people in the community who are avid users of those huts, and a good friend of mine in particular, and we've had lengthy conversations about it, and it seems like this has just opened up this nasty can of worms, and I always find it kind of interesting when, folks come to Roslyn and they create all this, management stuff around something that was just doing fine on its own. It was one of those things, leave it alone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And ain't is slang, I know. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because now all those beautiful little historical huts are in jeopardy, and I kind of feel badly about that, but it's an emotional issue in town right now. That was just my comment to council. So
Any more on Friends?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I did attend the meeting to which this applies. I didn't go to the second one. But one of the things that came out there by the guy from the ministry is that it's not status quo, right? If there's evidently this, and why the province thinks they have a budget to do this, I have no idea. But they have a division that's going out and getting rid of these unofficial cabins in places around the province. And so if we did nothing, we'd probably lose all the cabins, right? Doing this gives some status to, if people come in and want to come in with a usage agreement, that then the recreation site managers have some standing to say, wait, we have a voice, we have a voice at the table too. I have no idea if, how much of that is true or not, but the ministry guy was there saying, it's not like, he made it clear that trying to get the recreation site thing would, in the end, be a benefit to the area, not a detriment. We have more to lose by not doing it than by doing it. And it was pretty clear at that meeting. Plus, the other thing that he was saying is that he has to do the official paperwork stuff, but he can be somewhat flexible. And people are saying, we need like a 5-year transition time. And he's like, well, I might be able to work with that, So I think it's, I don't think the community should be against the recreation site thing. I think we have more to lose by not doing it. Anyway, that's the impression I got at the meeting.
However, there's people that think differently than that. That's
Of
for
course,
sure.
of course.
Absolutely. Anything more on 4? G.
G with me. Now, as I recall, in our strategies and our visioning documents and all the rest of the stuff that we say we do, we say that we want to work collaboratively with our regional partners. And I know we were also unhappy at spending $40,000 towards the LCCDT and funding a big, expensive executive director and all that. So, LCIC, funding the director, funding the LCCDT, all the rest of it. But this proposal that they came back with of $1,700, our share would be $1,700. They go to CDT and get some funding. It kind of keeps the projects that were underway going. Plus, it shows that we are actually working with our regional partners. I think it's a low cost and good, pretty good value for this small contribution. I mean, I've tried as I've gone along here to try and say the kinds of things they're doing, like the Attainable Housing Group and the workforce renewal thing, where they're doing this whole package to attract people that works for the whole region, right? Putting up making these different efforts. I'd support us, putting forward the $1,700. So I'll make a motion that we put in $1,700 towards this regional economic development effort this year.
Seconded by Blooming. Okay, you
And I
already
think
had.
I've kind of already said it.
Yeah, you have anything to say?
Yes, actually, I somehow didn't notice that in the recommendation it said to decline it. I was thinking the same thing. Small cost and potentially something can come out of it. I mean, any more than that, I'd be
wondering what's going to, I'd be looking for proof of something coming out of it, but 1,700 is easy.
No, I'll just speak first, I'm against it. $1,700 for what? Councillor Wallace.
Are you done? Okay. So there's history involved here. And there was an agreement for a 3-year contract to run economic development, to set up the Lower Columbia initiatives through the LCCDT. This money that they're talking about right here, the LCCDT used to have administration supplied by the staff of the regional district. That's what happened. There were no funds given to them. They simply had a member of the staff take minutes for them. And then when this whole program started to turn it into the LCI, there were some funds left in the old Economic Development Service. And they suggested that they needed those funds in order to make this transfer. The next year they came back and said, oh no, you said you were going to give that to us every year. This $15,000 has been a point of contention for a number of years. And I never agreed to funding it to them every year from tax dollars. As the regional rep, I never agreed to that. And they keep finding another way of getting it. So in March, there was a resolution from the East End saying that the contract would end at the end of 2013, and that any unspent funds would be returned to the regional district, any unspent funds at the end of the year, because that's been another little bit of an issue. Well, it's a fairly critical issue, is we're turning over tax dollars to this organization that isn't spending them, and they're sitting in a bank account. That's problematic. So that motion was made in March. There's been plenty of time here. This is not a surprise. And then about, 3 weeks ago, there were some members of the East End that wanted to see them continue at least for another year, and the LCI and the LCCDT were at that point requesting those unspent funds, and a reversal of that previous motion. So those unspent funds are around $140,000, and the East End did have a discussion that took about an hour, and we did come to a compromise. And the motion that we came to a compromise on was that they could have those remaining funds to be used next year, that all current participants would stay within this service for next year, and that there would be no taxation next year. So now, rather than saying, okay, well, we have about $140,000, what are we going to do with that in order to run the LCI and the LCCDT? As far as I'm concerned, this is looking a gift horse in the mouth. This is saying, we didn't get enough from you, we're going to find another way of asking. And I don't appreciate it. I really don't. I find it's rather disrespectful. I mean, yes, I'm not disputing that it is a regional enterprise. They are doing some good things, but this bothers me, plain and simple. And I said it at the last meeting. I mean, economic development, I do not think that it should be straight on the backs of the taxpayers. There's a number of businesses involved down there, and I think it's time for them to buck up. If they have some operating costs, take it from the 140, readjust their budget, go after businesses to help them out, but just to find another way to get at tax dollars, I don't appreciate it.
Well, they do that.
That's just...
Yeah, I mean, just so you know.
Anyway, that's my spiel. I spoke more than you did.
Yeah, but I came up with the same point.
That would be a woman's brain and a man's brain. Different. I appreciate, because I actually wrote down, refer to Councillor Wallace, and I appreciate that review for us, because I do recall you bringing that up a few times. So is this above and beyond that $140,000 that's going back to them? And is there a reason that they need that much more money? Like, are they stating for a specific project? There's no basis for it. Okay, So, you know, yeah, okay, that was my question, because I did.
There's lots of groups that do really good work.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
They all don't need $156,000.
yeah. Okay,
Councillor
thanks.
Thatcher.
Now, my only comment, I was wondering, you know, there's no list of their activities and projects, you know, there's no list of what they're doing, and without any information on what they're doing, I find it hard to support, especially after your rate of $140,000. But say with not knowing their activities and projects, that I can't support it.
Well, I've tried as a representative on the LCCDT, I mean, for the last meetings, practically everything I report on my members' reports is stuff the LCCDT is doing. I also had brought up the LCIC website and the workforce, the work attraction kit website and the LCCDT website, hoping that you guys would look at it, because a picture worth 1,000 words, right? They are doing a lot of things. I understand Councillor Wallace's frustration, and I think her frustration is maybe getting a little bit in the way of actually what are we trying to do here. For one thing, it is nice if we can have some common ground with some of these other municipalities and do something together. And these are collaborative efforts, right? I mean, like, there's a group, part of the LCCDT, that's trying to get the north-south corridor open so we get the trucks not going. I know.
That's been going on for 40 years.
I know. Well, and that just because it's been ongoing, it doesn't mean that, I mean, these things, you know, I'm just saying there's things that they do as a group that we wouldn't do as individuals, but we'd certainly appreciate if they happen. Like, I'd love to not have trucks come through Roslyn, there's an example, right? Or I'd love it if their metallurgic group that's trying to find spin-offs for tech was able to attract some businesses here that brought people to live in Roslyn or start their business, and I think that would be great, right? These aren't necessarily things that we're going to do ourselves. They're trying to do that. I see benefits that could come to us, and $1,700 bucks. I mean, I understand we don't want to do the 40,000, but I see this as, you know, it's not that big a deal. And to Councillor Wallace's thing, they do go to other employers and other places to get money. Like, I think I said this in another meeting, and I can't remember what it was, but the amount of money that was put into the workforce thing was like leveraged up, you know, 5 or 6 times to do the project. So they do that. I guess I'm just not doing a good enough job conveying to the group what they do, and I apologize for that, because I'm trying, right? But it would be helpful to look at their websites and see, and you do get all this for $1,700 bucks a year, not bad.
Well, first of all,
They're trying to make
we're not getting the
continuation.
website for $1,700 bucks. Let's be clear about that. The LCI website, I don't know what it cost. It was up there. The Invest Kootenai, now we're partnering with Invest Kootenai through the LCI, which we could partner through Invest Kootenai ourselves. We don't need to go through the LCI. We can just phone up Invest Kootenai and say, put us on your website.
And what would we put on our what would we do?
On there, a link to ours or whatever.
Oh.
Right? We can do that. You can buy in there. You don't need all these groups. And you say that these are projects we might not necessarily do ourselves. That's exactly the point. We just had a budget.
We would get a benefit
we just had a budget presentation where we realized we have to be pretty specific what we're doing with our money. And there's no specifics here. Mr. Martin phoned me, and I'm sure he's phoned you, and maybe some others. $1,700 isn't a lot of money. But it's $1,700 with what? To hire what?
Well,
If we put this the other way around, they would say, for what? So I'm saying, and I guess you heard me earlier, for what? Councillor Fisher.
I'll be voting against the motion to fund it. I'm not against economic development. I think that there are, as I've mentioned before, organizations in the community that have been overlooked. And since part of my past was doing some of the work, it seems to me that there was, at the beginning focus of the LCCDT, there was, I'll give you one little sermon and that's it. There was a huge focus on hitting a home run, looking for something big. And they looked for something big in terms of trying to attract larger employers. They looked for big with the metallurgy group. They looked for big, and I can tell you right now, in our location, based on my experience, the successes are onesies and twosies and moms and pops, people starting small businesses and
Absolutely.
eventually hiring 4 or 5 people.
Mhm.
And the whole idea of the attraction to the area is very simple. You make the way to get to the area super easy. That's with great transportation. That's an upgrade to the airports. And other things will take care of themselves. And it sounds so simple when you say it, but if you read up on any of the economic dev stuff that's out there, the biggest successes come from the onesies and twosies, and these guys have not focused on that.
They are now.
What's too late for me? I'm not buying in. I have more trust in other organizations to do this at the moment, and the giant north-south corridor and all the money that was spent on that, and all these other big things that they were rushing towards. It's not good enough in the money that was spent. And to have, they should actually have a plan that they come, I mean, if the East End did say that they could have the 140 grand, then what they should have done is come to all the municipalities, not relied on you as a representative, but done a presentation saying we're doing this stuff, and then really give us a proper presentation, and add this on to it if they wanted to. Mr. Martin could have come here and explained it. I would have explained my take on where they've been going with all this stuff for all these years. And then see if we could come to some kind of bargain. But as of right now, I wouldn't be supporting this.
Okay, any further discussion?
Okay, so I went into this thinking, I remembered there being a story about 140, and I just thought, oh, that must have been last year or something. Now, I didn't realize this was to top up something that huge. I thought, oh my goodness, they've changed their ways, they're not spending exorbitant amounts of money on these complicated websites that are almost overwhelming given the, number and, I don't know, just the way they're organized, and, anyway, I really have, I have questioned the value of some of the things that I know that they have been doing. And I've always thought that they spend an awful lot of money on the things that they do and on the people that they hire. And I would rather see just genuine, inspired, economic development actions that don't cost a lot of money. Those ones are generally the ones that work best anyway. So, I thought this was some major transformation they were taking, and they just wanted to go bare bones now. It doesn't look like that. So, anyway, I'll vote against it for sure.
Okay, I think we know where we're at, so on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's defeated. Anything more on G? H, liquor control policy, we got H. I think it was you, Jill.
Oh, you know what, it was G, I think, on that.
So you don't need H?
Nope.
You don't want to auction off a couple bottles or anything?
No, I was thinking that might be a good fundraiser. That's all right.
I, healthy community capacity building grants.
Oh, that was me. I just wondered, do we apply for those healthy community capacity grants? I know you have to kind of, and that's a question through you to staff.
Have we applied for any, Trace?
We haven't.
Have we ever considered? Should we be considering that? So I'm saying grants. As soon as I see grants, Anyway, could you pass that through to the planning department or something, and to see if there's anything there? I mean, we have an incredibly healthy community, so maybe we can, I don't know, build on the capacity or something, and get a grant.
Get health programs, though?
Well, I think you have to partner with health or something, but there's something that Roslyn is really lacking, we've got, there's no mental health facilities here, there's no youth facilities here. I know there are in Trail, but I just, maybe there's a possibility that we could create something. Thank you, don't spend a lot of time on it, it's just a question.
K.
I meant to say L.
That's after K.
I know, but I realized I had it down, I thought it was I.
That was me.
K.
I just wondered, do we have anyone in mind for the Order of British Columbia, because they're calling for nominations?
I have one personally, but it's outside the city of Roslyn, and I'd rather not say it right at the moment.
And we've talked about this last year, and then it came down to finding time to do it. And this year, I know I myself am in that same position, so, it's just, we can nominate somebody, but we have to put in the time to actually fill something out.
So it seems like a short timeline, is it, or is it just my imagination? Oh. Fine.
It is more than a 3-minute task.
Yeah, I started it last year, and I realized it was
beyond what I'm
Okay,
trying
so
to-
anyway, is there anything more on that?
No.
If there's somebody that wants to jump up and down about it, because mine will be done in another way. Okay, you got Al, Counselor.
Al, the building inspection report, I'm glad to see that it's back and the details are back. I just recall from one of the last meetings that the ones were May to October, and we were going to get the details on those, and they were gonna be in the information pack, and I haven't seen it. So just a little reminder. Thanks.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Opposed, carried. 10A. Item 10A, request for decision that bylaw 2562 broadband loan authorization bylaw 2013 be adopted. Moved by Moore, seconded by Lumi. Discussion. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Sorry, opposed? Carried. Members' reports. There we are, yeah. I'll go to Councilor Moore first, notice of motions.
Okay, I have a couple notices of motions for tonight. I would...
Well, we read them.
Okay, I'm glad you did.
So is there a seconder to the first one?
What?
Current long-term and short-term borrowing capacity?
Yeah, long-term, short-term, and
Need
then
a
also
seconder.
starting in, you want to split it up? Because there's two pieces to it. The other part was just that starting in 2014, that staff will give us quarterly updates to our financial plan, because we haven't had that since
Make it
Deb
all
Tim left. Okay? So you want to make it all in one?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
I don't need to read it.
seconder,
And then second it.
Thatcher, discussion.
Okay, so I think I kind of covered what I was trying to get at here. You know, our indebtedness is a moving target. We've now, we're putting out that we're doing the $4 million long-term. We just approved 112 short-term. And I just would like to see this as be kind of a regular update that we get so that we know, what we've got going. I think it's just fiscally responsible that we have that. And that's the same as I feel about the updates to the financial plan, is that we should get somewhat regular updates to how we're doing to our financial plan, the way we used to when Deb Tim was our financial officer. So.
You're talking about another
No, that's the second part of the first one.
Okay,
There's two.
I don't know, once we know at budget time where we're at with our debt, how does it change in May?
Well, I mean, we just periodically, like right now, we know,
Well-
it just changed, right? Because we're adding $4
Yeah,
million
yeah,
to
yeah.
it, and we just added 112 to short-term. And there may be some other short-term that we do somewhere out. I just periodically, I'd like us to get these updates on this,
Well,
just so we have the information.
Keep it fresh in our head.
Counselor?
Yeah, keep this fresh in
Hi.
our head. Thank you, Jim.
I don't mind the motion. I think it could be simplified, though, just a quarterly budget update would be a better motion. And then within that, you could have that information should be on a balance sheet, right? The debt would be on the balance sheet, you wouldn't have to do some separate report.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd vote against it, and then I'd just change the motion to quarterly budget updates.
Okay.
And I don't think that's a bad thing, I think the staff would want that too. Anyway, that's what I'm gonna
Counselor
do.
Walsh.
Well, my assumption after the presentation that we had earlier, and given where we've been through in the last year, my assumption is that this will be coming, and that the motion isn't really necessary. Now, I don't know, maybe that's my naivety, but that's my expectation. I mean, we already have a piece of it sitting here in our new binder, and I'm pretty sure that, once our manager of finance actually has the opportunity to get caught up, that she's going to want to supply this to us. So it just seems like an unnecessary motion to me.
Counselor?
Yeah, I was, I like the idea of a quarterly, budget update. This motion, when I looked at it, I was in favor, as long as it didn't take up too much staff time. I don't want any more staff time taken up for another presentation, but I think a quarterly update, it keeps you, as Councillor Blue said, it keeps fresh in your mind, and it might open our eyes to what's going on a little more.
Vern?
Can I amend my motion? I'll just amend it to
who
ask for a
seconded it?
quarterly.
Who seconded it? Okay, just Because it's on the
Yes.
floor right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can motion to amend.
Yeah, okay, motion to amend that we ask for a quarterly financial update that includes a statement of our indebtedness or something. And I'm not, the intent is not to have it be more staff work, the intent is to inform us. And, you know, for the number of years we've been on council here, I can't assume that we're gonna get this information because we haven't, so I don't think.
Okay, that's pretty much, well, I guess that could be an amended motion. So on the amendment, you okay with that?
Yep.
Or still seconded, okay?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment, to Councillor Wallace, that I think really what we're looking at is providing the, whatever up-to-date actual numbers are to budget. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, simple.
It's just simple,
Mhm.
and it's not
Yeah.
seeing the budget over and over, it's the, you know, we spent this much so far, and here's our budget.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like
That's
that.
all it is.
Yeah.
Timeline, flow chart.
Yeah, go ahead.
And your worship, that's fine, and I would expect that if we keep with our current.
Person.
Financial person will do fine.
This will all be just fine.
Okay, so I can call the question, or you want, you
Well,
okay?
I haven't said anything yet. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not, sure, I wanna see this stuff often enough to keep it in mind and to do this first, and that all makes sense. But I'm very much with Councillor Wallace that really this, I mean, especially if it used to be the way it was when we had a normal life here in City Hall, then, you know, that just means that once we can finally get back to that's going to, it just seems obvious that would be instituted again automatically. So, I don't know, I mean, now if we vote against it, then it looks like, oh, we don't want it, but, so this is kind of,
Yeah,
it's
so
unfortunate that we're doing this.
Yeah, I agree totally, but we are, Counselor.
Well, I think it's harmless in light of all the conversation we're having around here. It's harmless, and you know what? It does set it in motion, and, you know, I've said this many times, I've been here 8 years, and honestly, there has not been consistency, and frankly, I think that it's very, I don't use this slang, doable, by our new financial, what is she? She's not a manager,
She's
is she our manager?
accountant controller.
She's our accountant controller, thank you. And I'm sure she'd be happy to bring that to our attention, and I would like to have those numbers at the tips of my fingers when I talk to people, so I think it's harmless.
Okay, well, it's not harmless. Helpful.
Helpful.
Right.
Helpful.
On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Counselor Moore.
Okay, so
Is
I
there
have,
a seconder the staff ask ISL Engineering for a list of invoices that's submitted to the city hall? Seconder for that
I'll second that.
discussion?
okay, the reason is, when we've looked at our summaries of Columbia, Washington, there have been really different numbers that have gone floating around about what exactly ISL, what we agreed, you know, I mean, I know we have a motion that said we agreed to pay them $500,000, and then their bills got up to, you know, close to,
Million.
I think, over $900,000. And I think it's only fair that we get a list of that. And actually, I have a different motion tonight that would encompass this, which is just, it's based on the notes that I sent, trying to get more complete information on the Columbia, Washington thing, which I think our new financial person will have at her fingertips, which would be lovely. But we need to know what these things cost us, and the ISL portion of it is the part that still seems to be the vaguest to me, from what we agreed to pay, what we've been told we paid, how it showed up in various reports, like the report that Cecile gave us in June has different numbers for engineering and project management than the one we got October 15th. I'd like to have it, you know, like all stitched up in a nice little report that this is what we said we were going to spend, these are the changes we made, this is what we spent, done. And it actually includes everything we said we were going to spend and everything we actually spent.
So-
To me, it's like basic project management.
Why are we asking ISL a list of all the invoices?
Well,
they
because
sent-
that
they
was the
sent-
part-
That they sent to the city of Roslyn. Are they gonna say you have the invoices?
Ask, that's, well, I don't know, then maybe
Did
we
we
could
pay
get-
invoices that aren't there,
Well,
is that what you're saying?
okay, no, what when I've talked to other, like, engineering people in the community, they said, you just get that from ISL, just ask them, say the list of the invoices. So in an effort not to create staff time of asking staff to go back through and pull up these things, that the easier way to get this information was to just say to ISL, give us a list, and they push a button on their computer and it says, these are all the invoices we sent to the city of Roslyn, and there they go, you know. So, now,
That there would obviously be a cost to that, because they just don't push a button for nothing, but anyway. I don't know why we don't have all the invoices, that's what I don't understand, why
Well, I
why we
don't
have to go to
either,
ISL.
I don't either, I have no idea if it's, I mean, when I've talked to engineering people in the community, they're like, well, of course ISL would have done that, of course that's part of their thing, so we should have had it, but we don't, right?
How do we know that? How do you know that we don't have all the
Well,
invoices?
because we've never been given it.
Well, we wouldn't be, council wouldn't be given the invoices.
Not the invoices, but the summary of what it costs, what the project costs.
This is asking for the invoices.
So we know what it costs,
So you
right?
want the invoices. Your motion is to get the invoices. Is that what you want?
Well, I want a list of the invoices submitted, so that we know what they charged us for, right? What they charge us for, and what they charge us for. I'm sorry, I'm not being clear.
Councillor Fisher.
I can help push the button. If we're looking for a GL that has ISL on it and the invoices, it'll print off of our system.
Mhm.
It'll take, no time to do it by year, truthfully. You just click on it and away you go. And the only question that would remain in my mind was the pre-planning and the planning and what did previous councils agree to spend, and is there that crazy accrual overlap that I was talking about from one year to the next, and, you know, to break those two things off would probably take the new comptroller more time, just because she would have to go back and review all the contracts to see what they were, but you could definitely print the GLs.
If we had the GLs, that's really what I want, right? I don't care as much when they were paid. I'm assuming they were all
Okay.
paid.
And then just change the motion to the GLs, and then you're fine, we got it.
But I think the Auditor General is going through all that right now.
Well, we may get everything I'm asking for, I don't know what the
Well-
Auditor General is asking for, so we may get that. I mean,
Pardon?
we may get that. All I'm asking, basically what I'm trying to get at here is, what I think we owe the citizens of Roslyn is an actual cost of Columbia, Washington. What we said we were gonna do, what changes we made, what we paid, right? Top to bottom. And have it be, the one we got in October was close, but it wasn't there.
But-
Didn't
Okay,
include
but
everything.
if we go back to the motion though, Counselor,
Mhm.
that's what we're discussing, is your motion is to go to ISL and ask for a list of invoices. That's your motion.
That
So
is
if
my
that's-
motion.
If that's what we're talking about, we'll talk it.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
I would
Councillor Wallace
second.
had her hand up first.
Through you, I'm wondering if staff has the same confusion as seems to be around the council table, because I'm just betting that the staff could answer this question, and I don't know, I mean, if that's all it is, that you want staff to compile the complete cost of, Columbia, Washington, complete with the engineering, I mean, I can completely support that. I know that that's coming to us. Again, it's kind of the same as the previous motion. I have faith that it's coming to us, but I know that our staff's had a little bit of a rough year. So, given that we are now, our comptroller is now putting these numbers together, I expect it to be coming this way. But this is a weird motion. The
You're right.
discussion here is really weird. And maybe staff can answer something.
You know what? I'll withdraw this motion,
No.
because I do have another one that I could just
Okay.
leave with the staff. Because, and it doesn't even have to be, see, that is exactly what I want, what Councillor Wallace said, exactly what I
Well,
want.
then you tell us.
Right? I know, well, because, it's like, I shouldn't even have to be asking for this, it should have just come to us, right? So we can pull this out. I was thinking this was the smallest bit that I was missing, and that would make it easy, because I know everybody doesn't want staff to do extra work, and I appreciate that. So trying to bring it down small, right? Well, this doesn't work. So I just put in the one I was gonna do tonight anyway. I'll put that one in, and then we can talk about that, okay? I mean, it's like, I feel like I've been asking for this information about Columbia, Washington, like practically since the project began. Where's the budget? What are we gonna, all of these things. So it's not that I'm pressuring staff to do something that hasn't been talked about before. I mean, we got all those crazy half-baked things that had, Mr. Kumar had done, and then that Cecile had done, and none of them are actually a legitimate report, probably, as Councillor Fisher gets on his projects, where he gets the numbers, right? That's all I'm asking for.
Councillor Bloom, you had your hand up. Are you gonna call the question on this motion, I think.
No, I've withdrawn it.
You might as well.
You can, it's on, well,
We have
who seconded it?
Me, I didn't even get a chance to
Oh,
talk, because
sorry.
everybody has a lot to say,
Okay.
but I'm good.
All right, motion's withdrawn.
Okay, because I'll do this other one.
What, there's another notice of motion?
It is.
I think,
Do you want me to just to read it and see if you want to vote on it tonight? 'Cause
well, I
maybe it'll
was just
look-
gonna say, as to notices of motion, there was something you asked a while ago, and I was going through minutes. I went way back to '08 and '09, or '08, I guess, and looking at the minutes, and what happened at many of those council meetings, and I think you and I, and I think most of us know why, they were nothing but notices of motion from one member, right? And the reason was that member wasn't getting any support around the table for anything, right? He couldn't just raise his hand, that person couldn't just raise his hand and make it a motion. Do you know what I mean?
No, the procedure was you had to put a notice of motion in.
No.
No.
Yeah, it was.
You just made a motion earlier on, the money for the LCCDT.
Oh, well, yeah,
But what I'm saying is,
yeah.
rather than go through that, all of that, just give a type notice of motion. If you just let us know that you want something on the agenda, and we can maybe, if there's some way we can put a motion together like that. If not, you can bring it up and we'll talk about it just now, because you went to a lot of time to put this notice of motion together,
Mhm.
and it turns out it's withdrawn.
Mhm.
So if we had just had that discussion without all of this,
Ah, yeah, but then
well,
it's
if you want to
really,
if you want to continue doing that, that's fine. I'm just saying that I don't think that that's necessary.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. The problem is, we just had this discussion, and it was hard enough to try and talk about it when I already had it written down. I'm worse when I'm trying to be free-form it, you know,
Well, you
like.
could have it written
You
down
can write it.
yourself.
You know, well, but then I'd like to have you guys have a chance to read it beforehand,
Well,
as
okay,
opposed
do
to
it-
me trying to explain
Do
it.
whatever you want then, but I just saying.
Okay,
that-
well, I'll try that this time
I
then.
don't think
Here we
that-
go, I'll try that. Try that now. Okay, so here's a motion. That staff be directed to provide council with a complete summary of the actual costs compared to the approved estimated budget cost for Columbia, Washington renovation project. This report should include original budget, listing of all approved changes, final budget, final cost, variance to original, final budget, or final budget. Further, staff be directed to address the questions raised by me in my email of October 15th, the summary of Columbia Avenue and Washington Street upgrade provided by staff in the October 18th information package attached to here too. You see,
Okay,
you
that-
can't do that as a
excuse me.
motion, right?
Well, no, you can't do that as a motion,
No.
but a simple motion would be to get the budget and the costs of, actuals of the Columbia, Washington project, and we'd all say, yeah.
But then do we end up getting that? 'Cause
It's a motion of council. I mean, it's no different, you would have no better chance of getting or not getting it than having that highfalutin motion.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I guess I don't have much
Well-
chance of getting them anyway. You know?
All right, just put that in as notice of motion, because that's
Yeah.
4 pages long, and no one's gonna.
Okay,
A simple motion
that's the
is, a
problem.
simple
Okay.
motion is one thing, but
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, that, you're talking staff time there, that, my
I'm
goodness.
talking staff time on a report that we actually
Oh, I know.
should just get when we do an infrastructure
We
project
totally agree
like
with
this.
you there.
Okay.
We totally agree.
Okay, and maybe when staff looks at this and they can say, oh yeah, that's exactly what we've done for the AGLG, and then it's all done. That would be great.
All right.
Could I just make a little comment, just a small one? Little tiny comment. When did the CAO go on leave?
October the 11th,
Right, so then we did have something in the package that,
October the 15th.
that was,
Didn't include all of
call
it,
it,
so.
say 90% there.
Mhm.
Right, but that particular person, the CAO, the new one, had just basically taken over, was getting caught up, presented us with that stuff, then went away on leave, and the stuff that you're referring to is, yes, stuff that we should have as a council. Now we have, some folks filling in, and once again, a new comptroller that we were gonna have to ask for this stuff, and to make an assumption that, I think to make an assumption that staff may not get it to you fully, or there was a little flippant comment at the end of your, at the end of your discussion. I think that's unfair to the people that are here right now, that are working here right now.
No, my comment was that I wouldn't get from council, I probably wouldn't get a motion passed. It wasn't about staff.
Right, but my point is that there was no motion, and that flippant comment was there you've been getting these motions passed, so why don't you make the motion, it'll get passed, and we have to get that project, there has to be a final report. There has to be. It's not like you're gonna sweep $7 million under the carpet and say, oh, there's a project and it didn't.
The Ocean Reservoir never got an actual thing. I mean, it did, and I know, well, the mayor doesn't want to go backward, but it doesn't. We don't have a history of getting accurate reporting done on big projects in this city.
But we would
don't
be
have that
asking,
history.
and
All right.
we are asking for one through a motion.
Yeah, that was asked through a motion. That's
So
fine.
So you're turning that in then?
I'll turn this
Counselor
in,
Blooming,
I will.
I'm gonna get to you in a
Well-
second, unless you wanna talk to that then.
We've been through this before, many times. I mean, we've talked about this. We all want the same thing. It's just that it gets to the point of, 90% completion or whatever it is, and then there's like a whole flip side upheaval. And then gets to, it's a huge, huge thing to do. So it gets to 90% completion or whatever. And then there's a big upheaval again. I mean, this has been a rough year. So it's coming. Everybody knows, everybody in this building, who works in this building, knows that we want this and we're expecting this. And I don't know why we have to keep putting forward motions on it.
We don't. So that's gonna be turned in, so members' reports. Counselor Fisher. Anything in members' reports?
Oh, yeah, I did have one thing. I spoke to, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Councillor Blooming about it yet, but I spoke to Ron Parapoken, who works for Community Futures and is doing some of the broadband, implementation for the City of Trail. And he was expecting a call from our broadband committee, or I think they made overtures to each other about having a discussion about how they're rolling it out in Trail and how that might help up here. So it was just a conversation that I had while I was visiting.
You don't know who he was talking to. Was he talking to you? Parapoken?
Well, I was actually told on Friday, I got a phone call out of the blue telling me to call him this morning, and then I got an email saying, don't call him this morning because he's not ready to talk to you yet. So, and then as far as, the generalities of that goes, I'm also going to be the regional group that's going to be sitting together to talk with the ISPs and to talk together and all that. I'll be on there, and the other regional meetings that have happened, I've been part of that. And then I have been in touch with Trail people, but not with Ron Parapoken specifically. So anyway, I think it's what you're talking about, I think, is moving ahead as soon as he's available to talk to me. So I'm a little bit confused because there I'm getting the mixed messages again about if I should be talking to him specifically, but.
So anyway, give
Yes.
Give the name and whatever, and Jody can call it.
Yeah, I'm open to talking to him for sure.
Yeah? Okay.
I don't wanna harass him.
Anything more from members?
No.
Counselor Blooming.
Broadband, I was gonna touch on that, the people who are, communities who are involving themselves in the CDBC broadband thing. There's been an expression of interest put out to 4 ISPs to draw them in, and then everybody's going to kind of figure out what the ISP wants and what they can do and what, how that can get sorted out. There hasn't been a meeting of that yet, though. It's just in the beginning stages. And I sat with Amy Ambrosoni last week. She's the new COO of CBBC, as Mark Halwa has decided to move on to other things at the end of December, and basically, I don't know, our build is moving forward slowly. There's some information that they are trying to seek and from different parties, and anyway, the freeze is coming, the ground's going to freeze, but there's still ways of dealing with that apparently. Being able to do construction anyway. There are, I don't know, there's some discussions that have to happen with TELUS, there's some discussions that happen with Shaw, and as well arrangements made with Fortis